Yo, what's up, everybody? Dale Luganbild, Full Scale Outdoors. Thanks for tuning in. How'd you guys like that turkey episode? All you turkey hunters out there jonesing for green grass this spring, hop on Facebook or Instagram. Let me know what you liked about it, didn't like about it. What would you like us to talk about next? That kind of stuff. So one of our episodes that I got some feedback on, some good feedback, and just judging by the downloads, is one of their most popular one, was the waterfall episode with Nick A. Johnson. Well, if you liked that one, you're in luck because we're doing it again. That's right. This week, Nick A. Johnson, we sit down and we talk about this upcoming spring snow goose season, the spring conservation order for light geese. So, it's got us both jonesing pretty good. We recorded at his house, and for those of you who are already fans of Nick Johnson, you know that he has got these town birds that he feeds in his front yard. So he had the pile of corn out there as we were recording, and so we got distracted by that quite a few times. But it's pretty cool watching them mallards come in as hardcore waterfallers. That, man, those wings cupped out, coming in, committing like that down to that feed pile is just, whew, gets your blood flowing. And then you talk about snow goose hunting, and I was ready to pack up the truck and head south, whatever it takes. Let's do this. Tired of waiting for the weather, which it's just never going to end. More snow forecasted for this weekend here in Minnesota, just reinforcing that snow line. So we get into that and what that means as a snow goose hunter. So if you are a snow goose hunter, you're going to want to listen to this. If you're a waterfowl hunter, you're going to want to listen to this. And if you've ever thought about doing the spring snow goose hunt, you're going to want to listen to that. So we give you, we kind of break it down, some of the, how to get into it, and if you're already into it, what to expect, and all sorts of good stuff like that. As expected, it's going to be another good episode. Nick knows his shit, so let's do this. This is the Full Scale Outdoors podcast with Nick A. Johnson. Oh, here we go, boys.
Go.
Ooh, I love that sound. This is a good one. That should be alright. Yeah, no ducks, Nick. I'm disappointed. I was expecting, like, a refuge in your yard.
If you pour it, they will come.
So you say, but I don't see it.
They'll be here.
How do you not have 1,000 squirrels in your yard?
I do. I do. They come at certain times of day. I've seen a squirrel feed of up to 18 at once, and they're so big they look like cats.
I believe it. Tasty little cats.
Yeah.
tasty little cats.
They're huge.
Yeah. I bet. I believe it. I just have a bird feeder, and it's like I can't keep them stupid things off that at all.
Oh, yeah. And then it's funny. I'll keep the bag of corn next to it, and they will go chew like a million holes through the bag, even though it's wide open. And even
the
though
squirrels do.
Yeah,
well,
even
for a minute there, I thought we were talking about ducks. I'm like, what, really?
Oh, no. And you can see, like,
tear into a bag.
There's like some burrowed spots, like where the deer will chew through all the corn and like try to get down to the ground. I got big white tails here. Oh, there's
dude,
like
it's like a easy
there's like 10 mallards right there.
5-yard shot. Where?
They're,
I see him circling.
Yeah, circling to the east.
There's another, when I come down 35, there's a bunch. Where do I usually see them? 35W in the Lexington area by the Fleet Farm there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bunch that circle that area too. It's kind of cool. I don't know. All right, well, we're going to talk snow geese today.
Yeah, let's talk snow geese.
We're tired of snow, and we're going to take it out on white birds that look like snow because,
So it's
nature.
March 4th, and typically this time of year we would be taking our first trips kind of out to South Dakota, southern South Dakota. Usually you're getting the front edge push that's getting in there, and they're nowhere close right now.
Still stuck in Missouri.
Yes, they're stacked up in Missouri, even birds down all the way to Arkansas, Louisiana. Still tons of birds. So everybody's itching to get after them up here in the Northland. We're all polishing our mag tubes and getting the socks ready. So
I'm still trying to find a tube extension for my Vinci. It's proving to be difficult.
But once you get it, that's a really nice tube to have. because they switch out so fast.
I love the gun.
And there's no loose springs just laying around.
No, I love everything about it except for that now that I need an extended mag. I
And
can't
they're super expensive too.
It was, yes,
Yeah, the
it was.
tube. Did you find one?
Not in a tube, no. The
You haven't
tube's going
found-
to be as much as a lesser brand shotgun.
Yes.
It's going to be $300 or better.
Yeah.
Finally, and nobody makes a full tube anymore. Like you have to, got to get the components. It's like
What?
3 different things. Yeah.
Oh,
so I got to
man.
get an adapter, like a nut adapter. But if you've ever seen the Vinci's together, they don't really use a nut per se. You press a button to do a half twist,
Right.
and the thing pops off. So everything about it is specialized.
Yeah.
So that's why it's more expensive.
Right.
X-Rail used to make one.
Yeah, that's the one my brother
specifically
has.
for
Yeah.
the Vinci, and it was just click one off,
Yeah, it's
click
great.
one on, boom, you're ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, my brother has one. He'd switch out that tube in 30 seconds.
Not anymore.
Jealous.
And I'm guessing people don't just sell those on the classifieds. At least I haven't found any used ones yet. So it's been a
Right.
bit of a pain. We'll see. Maybe I'm only going to get to shoot 3 shells. We'll see. Because there's no plugs in them. They're just made that. They're made to
Yep.
hold 3. That's it. Or
Yep.
two and 1 in the
Yep.
chamber. That's it.
Yeah, that's what you got.
Crazy. But I love them. It's by far, it shoots the best for me by far. Like it's just when I shoulder it, it's right. I never have to adjust the bead. It's just right there. That's why I saved. I didn't buy a new gun for the longest time. It's like until I can buy this, I'm not buying anything.
Yeah, exactly. Don't settle. It's a 20-year investment.
Yeah. Well, I hope it's a lifetime investment. Let's hope not. I hope I live longer than 20 years. Knock on wood. Where's some wood?
There you go.
There. Good.
So the spring snow goose season for 2019 will probably go down as the worst spring snow goose season that anybody's had to
That's
experience.
a brutal forecast to be thrown out there, Nick. We're supposed to be pumping people up for this, not scaring them away.
You should be excited.
Although I'm not making any money off it, so I don't know why I care.
Yeah,
Less
you
pressure's
should.
better for me.
I'd love to go snow goose hunting. It's always fun, but there's going to have to be some mitigated expectations for the 2019 season. I mean, reports coming out of Arkansas and Missouri so far are atrocious. Single digits for averages for spreads is pretty standard. You know, shooting between 0 and 9 would be pretty standard, even on fresh feeds, even on, I mean, good conditions. Good conditions, you're seeing a lot of 30 stacks, 40 stacks for a good hunt. And if anybody's running in the 20s for an average, that's exceptional. Whereas last year I think I saw like 4 to 6 shoots that were like 300 plus.
That's a good one.
And like you're seeing 100 plus shoots kind of regularly, maybe like once a week or something. A guide service would put up a 100 bird day.
So non-bird hunters, if you're listening to this, I'm just like to put it in like, if people have ever really thought about what shooting 300 birds is like, just think about that. So you pheasant hunted one time with your uncle or your grandpa or whatever back in the day, and you brought how many shells did you bring? Probably didn't even bring a full box, right?
Yeah.
You probably grabbed a handful, threw them in your pocket. You can only shoot 3 birds on a good day. It used to be 2 back in the day, so you didn't need that many shells. I mean, maybe you're a turkey hunter. You really don't need a box of shells for turkey hunting.
Yeah, the most
You better
shells.
not need a box of shells for turkey hunting.
The most shells I've gone through in one day of snow goose hunting was 17 boxes.
One day.
One day and a lot of us shot about that many. It was like all of us kind of were in that 14 to 18 boxes range.
That's so many.
Yeah.
So what? And what's in a 12 is in a case, right? Or is it 10?
25 shells in a case?
No,
boxes.
Boxes.
10 boxes. So
10 boxes in a
everybody's
case.
around a case and a half of shells.
25 shells per box. Oh my God.
That was spring 2013, which I've been posting that on my
Wow.
social media quite a bit because that was the last year we had a spring this late. And we actually got into some fantastic shoots in 2013 as the birds got really stacked into the Dakotas.
Yeah, we can dip into that later too, because there's certain weather. We'll kind of talk about what people can expect with our current weather conditions, and then we can kind of go back on past hunts and kind of what can happen. Just so people are prepared.
On a normal spring, looking at weather conditions like we have now, I'd be super excited because we got a great snow line in the Dakotas. And that's really what we're looking for us Minnesota guys that are going to spend most of our time in the Dakotas hunting snow geese. We want a lot of snow there just to hold them up, keep them there. Maybe melts off kind of slowly just to keep them there for a few extra weeks, and let the front edge stack up on that snow line so you get a lot of different birds mixed in kind of in the same area. But
yeah, that's good. It's good and bad to have all the birds in one area.
It is.
I'm going to back up just a little bit, like I usually like to, no matter what I'm talking about, just in case there's people that are listening that maybe haven't been snow goose hunting for a while or even waterfowl hunting or anything. So we call it the spring season, but the actual term for it is the conservation season.
Correct. It's not a legitimate hunting season. It's
This was added, 15 years ago?
I believe 1999 was the first year, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to party like it's
2000 maybe. Yeah, somewhere right in there.
I can't remember. And it was a 10-year moratorium, if that's the right term, a 10-year trial. They're going to test this out because the snow goose population was out of control.
Right, exploding.
Because of farming practices.
Yeah.
During, their migration pattern. As they leave, they breed in the Arctic. And as they leave, they had like prime feeding conditions all the way down.
And then several springs of prime breeding conditions.
And wintering grounds, the rice paddies and all the fields is just, and then all the way back up, they have great grazing all the way up. So no time in these birds' history have they ever had it this good as far as food.
Right.
So there was this winter die-off, that's a long trek to go all the way down to Arkansas, Louisiana, back up to the Arctic Circle.
Yeah, so back in the 90s, there was a bunch of really concerned scientists about the snow goose population exploding and then destroying the fragile ecosystem of the tundra because they breed up in the Arctic Circle. We're talking anywhere from like straight north of Hudson Bay all the way west to like Alaska, and we call these tundra breeding birds. So they'll be up there mostly with like a smattering of different assortment of puddle ducks and then, small Canada geese. And they were actually fencing off some areas in these grazing areas so the snow geese couldn't get at them, and then taking pictures of them after the summer season, and it looked like a patch of grass in a desert.
Yeah,
like wherever they fenced off.
Yep, I've seen those pictures, and it's like, it's crazy because the one thing that the snow geese do, they don't just eat the tops.
No, they root.
Yeah, they dig right in there and they get the tubers.
Yeah, so it's tough for all that vegetation to grow back.
And the growing season in the tundra obviously is not very long, so
and they
it doesn't
still
take long to damage it.
Now that we're 19, 20 years into this season, they've said that we've kind of mitigated the problem, as in the population isn't growing as much.
We've stalled it.
Stalled it, yeah, but they say we haven't really reduced the population yet.
Right.
But it's been enough, but they're still experiencing problems in the tundra with birds overfeeding areas and abandoning them. They said there's a lot of snow geese that are breeding further inland now and not on coastal marshes.
Well, they got. I mean, they're gonna have to. If they're eating themselves out of house and home, they're gonna.
And they're really worried. Worried like a disease is gonna go through the colonies. Like if some disease starts up, and then they're really worried that something will wipe them out.
I mean, it wouldn't be good for
snow goose hunters.
Snow goose hunters, but so this conservation order was enacted, and then after 10 years, they took all the data and they, like you said, they saw that we're keeping it even, and without this, it would be out of control for sure.
Yeah.
So they made it permanent, and
yes.
that's where we're at now. Like this is just probably always going to be a thing, unless some virus or something else comes through and
for the
wipes
foreseeable
it out.
Future, definitely.
Yeah, I mean for people that want to get in an argument or find themselves in an argument about, with any anti-hunters or whatever, this is the perfect example to bring up that without hunters, they couldn't do this because scientists talk about oiling eggs. And when you're talking about millions of birds,
millions
of
possible.
nests,
or poison them, and then what else?
This?
What's going to eat the poison birds?
Right, yeah, you poison them, the polar bear's going to eat the poison, and then you got polar bears dropping dead everywhere else, and then the Arctic foxes and wolves and eagles are going to be eating poisoned carcasses. Like that's not and you can't go out and you're going to hand oil.
Yeah,
let's just say you have 1 million birds, and each bird lays, or each couple, so you got what, 500? Let's just say, easy math, 1 million birds, male and female, split down the middle. You have 500,000 nests, adults, 500,000 nests, and they were going to lay what? I don't know how many. I guess I don't know how many eggs they lay.
5 to 10 or so.
Yeah, somewhere in there. So now you got 10. What would be 10 times 500,000? 5 million.
Yeah.
5 million eggs. You gotta go hand oil.
And some of that math that
while
you
dodging polar bears.
Some of that math that you threw out there is actually kind of the reason that the spring has been so bad. It's because last year they had terrible nesting conditions. And so those 500,000 birds that could potentially produce up to 5 million juvies produced like 5 this year.
Yeah, and so that late, if everybody in the upper Midwest remembers, that really late, heavy snowfall and cold that we got here that was highly irritating, well, that actually killed the first clutch of Canada geese that we
in this
had
Midwest
here, too.
region, definitely.
Yep. Did a number on the nesting snow geese, which, again, for hunters, kind of sucks, but for the ecology and for the overall health of the Arctic, actually was probably a nice little help.
Yes, but for hunters, yeah, we've been struggling in general to put up big numbers on snow geese this year, and that's just because of the higher ratio of adult birds that we're dealing with. And
if anybody hunted them in the fall, they noticed it. Like, you just didn't see. We shot a couple juvies
right
when we hunted North Dakota in the fall, but it wasn't like
the worries started in the fall
is.
because, like, I know a bunch of guys that go to Saskatchewan and like in September and stuff, and they'll start chasing them right away. And they got a 20 bird limit up there, and they usually don't have any problems achieving their limits on a day-to-day basis until this year. And then it was report after report after report out of Saskatchewan coming like, it's not good.
Yeah. So with that, you brought up a point that I forgot to mention. So in this spring conservation season, not only did they add an additional season, but it's almost no holds barred. They liberalized the season.
You can use electronic calls.
Yep, electronic calls.
You can use unplugged shotguns. You can hunt a half an hour after sunset.
After sunset, yeah.
All sorts of regulations. They've loosened limits.
Limits, yeah. So
there's no limits anymore.
Although didn't South Dakota have a daily limit?
They used to. I think every state actually
used
used to. Yeah, every state now has gotten rid of it.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Which I'm actually kind of surprised they have a limit in the fall.
I am too, but I think that might fall under some sort of language in the Migratory Bird Treaty where they have to have a language. Because some provinces, like Manitoba's now is a 50 bird limit.
Okay.
And I think the Dakotas are 50 each. I think Kansas is too. There's a couple states maybe that have a 20 or still, or maybe a 25. But
this all sounds great and everything, but if you shoot 100 birds, especially like per person, you got to clean all those birds. Like, there's definitely a downside to this
there was
great
groups,
shoot.
And it's crazy how it'll change from one year to the next because in 2017, the fall, I knew some guys that were going to the Dakotas and achieving their 50 bird limits, like on juvies. They had a good hatch in 2017, and
be fun.
That held over all the way till spring of 2018. People were still having good shoots in spring of 2018. Like last year, triple-digit days weren't totally uncommon down south in Arkansas, and this year they're almost non-existent. It's amazing how we can just go from boom to bust because of a couple of damn tundra storms.
Yeah, well, you want the young dumb ones per se, but they're not even that dumb, if you will. People are like, there's a good juvie hatch this year. You'll like, the hunting's gonna be great. It's like, man, snow geese are snow geese. They're still gonna hold up at 90 yards, and
it's gonna be a lot better.
Keep going off. But
I've been hearing of guys like scouting for Roskies this year.
Oh, Rossies have saved many a hunts.
Yes, they do.
Suicide Rossi, we always call them.
Yeah, Roskies are typically a lot less wary. So usually where guys are like scouting and you'll hear reports like, there's a lot of gray juvie snow geese in there. Hopefully we get a good shoot in the morning. Now it's, hey, there's a lot of little Roskies in there. Hopefully we get at least 20 Roskies tomorrow to save our day.
Yeah, they'll do a thing too that I've noticed is they chase each other. So they'll get in this little dogfight thing where one's chasing another one. I don't know if you've witnessed this, but they don't necessarily decoy, but as like the main wad is going over your decoys, they checked you out and they're kind of floating off. This 2, maybe 3 Rossies will break off and they'll just start chasing each other for whatever reason.
Race each other down into the spread.
And next thing you know, they just
they
get in range. Like, they're not decoying. You can tell by like what they're doing. They're just chasing each other. They just happen to get in range and like, you messed up.
Right.
But thanks, because everybody else just straight ignored us.
So yeah, I think we can talk about like some tactics and some expectations. Like, how should you be hunting in spring 2019?
Yeah, so we set up the groundwork. Now we know we're in the spring and there's this conservation season, and so you want to go out and kill as many as you possibly can.
First of all, if you're thinking about hiring a guide, that's not a bad idea at all for this year.
It's a great idea. It's a great idea.
It's a great idea to at least set yourself up to not touching any decoys and just sitting in a spread. Not going to be on the list of bad ideas for this spring. Like I said, all the hunting this year is going to be really difficult.
Yeah.
Mitigate your expectations. One thing I like to do too is if I know I'm going to a certain area and a lot of times, like, you can look at the weather and be like, okay, this is kind of how the hunting's going to be. And if you can kind of look at it and be like, well, it's not going to be great, you can start to plan around that in some ways, like, what else is there to do in the area? If you're hunting,
Where's the nearest bowling alley? Let's
yeah,
do this.
like if you're in the Yankton area, like start Googling Yankton barbecue restaurants or, all sorts of, hiking trails, whatever. If you're going to be traveling, which most of us are, to go snow goose hunting, for 2019 especially, don't try to base your entire enjoyment of your trip/vacation on how well your hunt's going to go. Because if you do that in 2019, you are going to have a bad vacation.
If you have experience hunting snow geese, then you know what to expect. But maybe somebody who doesn't have a lot of experience, maybe you're going into it, you've heard enough about it, like, I'm trying it this year. Set yourself up for realistic expectations. Like, this is going to be a tough year regardless, but every year you see piles. People are going to post piles of,
Yeah,
ton
snow
of
geese
birds,
they're the most difficult waterfowl to hunt.
That's not the norm. I mean, yes, that's what we're all hoping happens, but there's a lot of times you're going to sit there and just watch birds fly over
and that's
a
a great
million
experience
miles away and never come down. Right, is what I wanted to kind of get into is, like, don't go into there. The determining factor of whether you have a good time shouldn't be how many times you get to pull the trigger.
Right.
Go out there, and I've told people that don't even hunt, like, if you just like wildlife, bring a camera and go sit in the middle of that spring migration, because it's like nothing you've ever witnessed.
It's the largest migration of any animal on planet Earth.
That's crazy.
It's
what
in
I
the
try to
spring
tell people,
season,
it's like
and you're in the middle of it.
Yeah, those Planet Earth documentaries, the National Geographic documentaries, you've watched all those, and you sit and you think it's a whole different world. You're 4 or 5 hour drive away from the Twin Cities here, plopping yourself right in the middle of that, and it is spectacular.
Yeah, bring a camera, and that's another thing too, like lunch breaks and stuff like that. When you're not sitting in the spread during lunch, drive around, snap some pictures. Like, have you ever seen a partially frozen cornfield with 3,000 ringnecks in it? Because that's the type of stuff you can see, and the shovelers are gorgeous, and the mallards are gorgeous.
Best. Every duck you can possibly imagine, in the hundreds, if not thousands, in their prime breeding plumage. It just doesn't, for a waterfowler or a nature lover, bird watcher, whatever, it doesn't get any better than that. It just doesn't get any better.
Pintails love to work snow goose spreads. So you get a lot of really up close pintail bird watching, which is awesome, trying to pick out the biggest sprigs of a flock, not to shoot.
Yeah. No, we've been covered up, and I mean literally covered up in thousands of mallards and pintails mixed in before. Just like you're in your blind tucked in, and they're 5 feet.
You can't shoot specklebelly geese, and they're gonna love your snow spread too, and they kind of
really do.
No fear in the spring.
Cacklers do too.
Yeah,
they know. It's like they literally know. Like, well, they're not shooting at us. Whatever.
Yeah, let's just swing down and say hi. And as a hunter, just sit back and enjoy it. And
enjoy
as a
the
bird
show,
watcher,
man. I recommend it to everybody.
I do too.
Experience it at least one time. I don't care if you have a gun or not. It doesn't matter. Just go out there for the sights.
There are some guys though that do show up, and they kind of I call it the YouTube effect a little bit. When you watch too many YouTube snow goose hunting videos, and you kind of think like, this is going to be a war. Like, I hope I brought enough ammo for this battle.
Cases, that could be enough.
Exactly, that sort of thing.
Probably.
And even on a field that you scouted yourself, and there was 20,000 snow geese out there, and you set up your spread, and you got all these full bodies and speakers, whatever. It's gonna be a battle this year. I mean, when the stars align, there's opportunities to put up good piles still out there, especially if they get all stacked up in the Dakotas. But
yeah, and you touched on it with getting guides, a great thing, because you don't have to go out and buy the thousands of decoys, and the calls. I mean, it gets expensive pretty fast.
Yeah, usually guide services are like $120 a day per person, which is so reasonable.
A fraction of what you're going to spend on your own trying to get your own spread.
When you think about it, like, not even counting the field leases, but you go walk out into a snow goose spread, you're like, so I'm sitting in $40,000 worth of equipment I didn't put any money towards, except for this $120 or whatever.
$150.
You get to sit back to and enjoy the show. And most guide services are running, like I said, around 0 to 9 for their averages right now, and And
Yeah, it's
some
tough.
of them are doing 20 plus.
It's tough. But anybody that wants to kind of get into it, like, and this has changed. Like the numbers, the decoys that people use have gone up. I
Oh
mean, we
yeah,
got into it. 500
that's a good number
was
to
those
start.
were the big spreads back,
To start.
back when people were like, oh my god, that guy's running 600 socks or rags, and it was all Texas rags back then. Silla socks hadn't even
Right.
come on the market yet.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of keeps bumping up. I mean, it's just escalation.
I do think guys can
safety
go out
number.
there and do some work with 500 to 600 though. I think like
you
some guys, especially if you're a feed chaser, like if you're going around and you're picking your spread up and you're moving it on a nightly basis or maybe on every day or every other day, there's still a lot of good hunts to be had over 500 to 600 decoys.
Yeah.
People kind of don't
And that's
consider it.
It's still a lot. I mean,
It's still a lot, but 3 guys can at least pick it up in under an hour.
pretty
you know,
quick.
like
yeah. 3 guys that know what they're doing can
I've done
do some damage.
like, oh man, I've done so many like 1,000 full bodies. Pick it up with 3 dudes, and it's
Full bodies. I can't even imagine. They look great.
the
It
birds
sounds
decoy
good
a little better.
It sounds good in theory, but who wants to set out 1,000 full bodies?
I
But
don't
it's
wanna
gone up,
move
but
'em.
it's almost tripled back from when it used to. So then
Oh,
it kind of went. Then it was
1,500
800.
standard,
Then it was
yeah.
1,000. Then it was 1,200. Now it's 15. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, like right now, people are. That's kind of what you want is like the
1,000 to
median
15.
is like 12 to 1,500
Yeah,
decoys.
yeah.
Phew, that's a lot, man.
And there's a law of diminishing returns that is a very fine line with snow goose hunting, and people have a tendency to just cross that line and then fucking full throttle towards the sunset past that line. So what I mean by that is, say you found a feed and it looks pretty juicy, pretty excited to hunt it. Let's just say you go out there and you set up 600 decoys. And you could shoot 30 birds doing that. And this is all hypothetical because there's no way you can test the same hunt twice.
Yeah.
But let's just say we went out there and we set up instead of 600 decoys, we set up 2,000 decoys and a handful of rotaries and a bunch of flappers and a bunch of full bodies. Now how many are we going to kill instead of 30?
32
It could be.
or 25.
It could be. That's the fine line with snow goose hunting is
Yeah.
knowing where to stop and
Yeah.
like knowing like, okay, we should probably quit now before we're setting decoys up to the damn sunrise for 4 extra birds, and you don't really know where that line is, and that kind of comes through experience and like knowing, okay, here's another one, like those snow geese are landing in that mud pit and we can get underneath them on this pasture that's nice and dry. In the mud pit we'll kill 50, in the pasture we'll kill 25 or 30, and we won't destroy our equipment, we won't destroy our lives.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
So like there's decisions that get made during snow goose hunting where it's like you could do this and it's easy and you'll have a okay hunt. You can do this and it's absolutely fucking miserable and it'll be a better hunt. But how much better?
How much work? Yeah,
How much better?
Yeah, there definitely is. I get what you're saying. The point of diminishing returns for sure. It's like I'm completely beat. My legs don't work. My equipment is destroyed. Our 4-wheeler is still stuck out in the middle of the field.
Yeah, exactly.
We had a good shoot though.
Yeah, exactly.
Meanwhile, the guys down the street didn't have any of that. They're fresh legged and they shot 30 birds.
And they're on
any of that.
their 4th, bush latte.
Exactly.
Back in town,
Yeah,
eating
for
hamburgers, and they're done cleaning their birds.
Yeah, exactly. So you kind of gotta.
But
What is it worth to you? Those extra birds. But who knows? But here's the X factor, and here's the doubt. It's like, and there's no way to, like I said, there's no way to test this.
There's no
What
way.
if you didn't put out all your decoys, and it was that extra? Because we're dealing with a pretty primitive mind of these birds. They're working on instinct and what makes them decoy, and what makes them go, okay, this field, and not this field. Safety in numbers is if you would have put out 400 more decoys, would you have potentially clicked? So maybe you had a day where you didn't decoy anything. Like they gave you that look. They do what snow geese do. They hang up at 80, 90 yards, and then they just drift off.
Mm-hmm.
And every flock did that, which is really frustrating. And anybody who's ever done this has done it. And they
For
get
all
it.
day, yeah.
They get it. It sucks. It's really frustrating. But if you had 400 more decoys, would
You
that
never
have been
know.
enough to just tilt
You
that
never know.
one lead bird to go, let's make one more pass and get
95% of the time, the answer is no.
No.
But that 5% still makes you frickin' wonder.
But it's that doubt. I mean, it's all, hindsight's 2020. After the fact, you're like, oh man, we should have put that other 500
numbers
out.
and realism certainly make a huge difference on one style of hunting snow geese, like when you're using full bodies and a shitload of them, and that's permanent spreads. So if you're, setting up a spread and we're not moving it, like a lot of guys do this with pits, so you can sit in there comfortably and they're not going to move. You'll adjust, a wing of the decoys here, a wing of the decoys there, depending on the wind. But when it comes to permanent spreads, a lot of times you're dealing with migrators, and they're coming down from a long ways up. So you need more decoys to draw their attention, and then you need more realistic decoys because they're just going to be staring at you for so long. So the guys who really put up good numbers, and there's guys who put up good numbers on permanent spreads and pits, and those are the guys using like a lot of full bodies.
Like a lot.
A lot. Like
10,000.
There's still a law of diminishing returns on that. But yeah, there's a guy, Rick Ham, in Illinois. He's actually running 4 pits, and each pit has 10,000 decoys. And there's other guys, and they are using around.
There's the ducks. They're coming in.
Yeah, we got mallards landing in my front yard.
How do you stay sane with this? Oh, my God. That is so cool.
I don't know. They're like my pets. I take pictures of them, and my waterfall photography buddies come over and take pictures of them.
I should probably snap a quick
We're
picture
just
there.
starting to see some
They're
hen
really coming
chasing.
down now. Oh, really?
Yep. Just the last week, I've started seeing
Find
a
clear
lot of
spot in your
drakes
window. Clean your windows, Nick.
over here. That one's all foggy.
No, it's good. It's good. Let's do that. Let's hit the snap.
We got about like
Chat of snap. I know.
10 in there and
get
20
some,
more.
There were
working.
some circling. I'm gonna try to
Yeah.
get some that are.
You know what? They act just like mallards do when you're hunting. Like they'll like come and they'll circle my corn. Like they'll circle 4 or 5 times and then leave. I'm like, okay.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Goofy thing. Look at them just choking that stuff down.
Yeah. And I've got whole kernel corn out there right now, and it's like they chug it. Like they're drinking it.
They literally are.
Yeah.
They are. They're like just shoving it down their own throats.
Yeah.
For anybody who didn't catch the first episode when I had Nick on, you can find him on Snapchat, Nick A. Johnson, and he.
Oh, my Snapchat's
Isn't it?
njohnson
Oh,
2367.
Shows how much I know.
And my Instagram's Nick_A_Johnson.
There you go. But he posts
There we go.
videos like all the time of these things.
With this high wind today,
Oh,
they're coming
crap.
in real pretty.
God dang it! I messed it up.
Watch us see a band here. I haven't seen a
Oh.
band in like 2 or 3 years. I've
Oh, no,
seen
look at how
one
Tight
band
they get
ever.
packed in there.
I've had one band in the yard, 2 black ducks, and 1 albino.
Yeah, was that last week you had that black duck in there?
Yep. I had a black duck last week, and I had a black duck a couple months ago. This winter was the first time I ever had a black in here. And then 3 years ago, I had an albino. And last year, I think, was the year I had a
Was
banded
it
drake.
a snow mallard, an actual albino snow mallard,
yeah,
not a blondie?
Yeah, it was an actual albino, pure white. And I've seen albinos mixed in with this Minneapolis winter flock since 2003 was the first time I ever have pictures of it.
Come on, birds, come circle back around. I'm trying to get some video here for Snapchat world.
So wherever these birds come from and wherever they're breeding, they must have like a recessive albino gene in there for them to be around for 16 years now. I've noticed albino ducks in Fridley here and there. I don't see them every year.
Sure.
I have not seen an albino in Minneapolis this winter.
Oh, they're gonna let me down. This always happens. This is like show business.
This is my fish tank, though. I just sit
Yeah.
here and watch the fishes, pretty
It's like
much.
when I go Facebook Live when I'm ice fishing. I gotta sit there and just be pounding fish left and right. As soon as I press that live button, lockjaw. That's just how it goes.
So anyways, we were talking about diminishing returns with full body spreads
Yes.
and permanent spreads. And there's that guy in Illinois, Rick Ham. He's got 4 spreads, 10,000 decoys apiece. And they have some excellent shoots over those spreads. Excellent. It's been some days where they've hit 200, 300 birds in a permanent spread.
That's so much money.
Yeah, what is it? How much does snow goose decoys cost?
Full bodies.
Yeah, like 100. You got to imagine he's getting a deal on them. Maybe 110 a dozen.
I would hope so, but even a deal is gonna be like.
Well, what's
good
110?
God.
Some of those spreads have more than 10,000. They got more like 12 or 14,000. But then I also know some guys that are running full body spreads on their permanent pits, and they're running more like around the neighborhood of 2,000, not 10,000, and they're having some I mean, multiple hundred bird shoots, very, very consistent shoots.
Are they mixing in like socks for movement?
Some are in the permanent spreads. I think most of the guys that have been at it for a really long time have got them all kind of replaced out with full bodies now. And when you are running a permanent spread, it's actually really advantageous to use full bodies because they're not going to get damaged. That's the drawback to using socks in a permanent spread is it'll snow on them,
I was gonna say.
and then they're screwed. Sometimes it'll rain or it'll get so windy it'll shred them.
Well, socks fill up with snow.
The
No
socks
one has
will
to
fill up
empty
with
out a
snow.
full body decoy after a snowstorm.
Yup.
An overnight snow. Look at him waddle through the snow.
Oh, look at that hen just come up, bounce over that tree.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty entertaining. Oh, she just did a complete face plant in the snow.
It's
That was
not
pretty
a very
hilarious.
big area for these ducks to get in. It's almost like hunting, or it's almost like a little Arkansas flooded
Yeah,
timber
little
hole.
timber hunt.
And I used to have the corn in the backyard, which is about 5 times tighter than this, and they would get in there.
That drake right in the middle is not gonna be able to fly out of here.
He's got so much corn in him.
Yeah,
You can see him choking on
Dude, you
it.
can see his crop. It's like his feathers are all like ruffled in the front because there's so much.
They're giving
Look at
us
these
a
things.
they're
Oh
giving
my
us a
God.
really nice look at their legs when they land.
Let's see. Here, I can make them not do that by filming. See, I already missed it. They're already gone. Just grab my phone. That's all it takes. Whatever. So I remember when I got into snow goose hunting, sheet water was like, gotta have a field of sheet water. Gotta that's just what it was for the weather conditions at those times. So there's still in sheet water, for anybody who doesn't know, you get the frost isn't out of the ground yet. The snow is melting, so it can't go anywhere. So it just forms these temporary spring ponds and damn near lakes, depending on the field.
Yeah, exactly.
And these snow geese don't really need a roost spot. If they got sheet water,
They will
they
roost
just
out on the
live.
fields, yeah.
I mean, that sometimes they'll just.
And
That's just
snow geese really
live.
love sheet water. And actually, it's kind of an interesting point because one time we were going out doing a little bit of, it was later in the spring when most of the wads had pushed through, but there's a bunch of pods of snow geese still around in the state if you're driving around looking for them. And it's just interesting to me how I would drive an hour and not see a snow goose anywhere. And then all of a sudden you come upon this area, like a 20-mile radius, where there's snow geese everywhere. And then you get out of that radius, and there's snow geese nowhere. And I'm just trying to figure out why the hell would that be. And I think I kind of figured it out a little bit. I mean, other than that, they're just kind of migrating in pods, and the pods end up where they end up. But they tend to favor any area with a lot of sheet water. So the Dakotas now, over the last like 15, 20 years, they have been tiling the fuck out of it. Minnesota's been tiled for 50 years.
Oh,
But now that's really
increasing.
creeped west into the Dakotas. So I've been finding areas where I find these like later spots for snow geese is just areas with a lot of standing water, sheet water, and areas that the tile companies have come through and completely tiled off entire ginormous areas of the Dakotas. You're going to find much fewer snow geese. And I mean, I don't know where those are or whatever, but something I noticed, like you start hitting sheet water, you start hitting snow geese.
Yep. And then as our seasons, continued, the more we went out there, then we started seeing less and less sheet water. It could have been because of tiling. I didn't even think about that. But also we just had some drier winters.
Definitely.
And drier springs. And so there was actually a pretty long stretch there where you weren't getting stuck in the fields. You could drive into whatever fields you wanted.
Yeah.
And got really kind of easy.
That's nice.
That's not going to be this year.
No. But the hunting should be better. We should have more sheet water. We should have birds that stack up a little bit. And, God, we can't even do this podcast. We're so distracted by mallards.
There's some that
I knew it was going to be a good day. I knew it was going to be a good
Try
day.
to get this stupid Snapchat thing going again. But yeah, with all this snow, and so we got the first half of this winter, before the first of the year, it was not super duper cold, but we didn't have a bunch of snow, and that frost got pretty far down.
Yeah.
Our frost line in the soil is pretty far down, and now we've dumped a crap ton of snow on top of it. So scared them away.
Yeah, they'll bail. They see you move too much.
But they'll come back around.
Yeah, if you move too much in the windows, they'll bail out of here. They're sketchy. People think they're park ducks. They're not.
Yeah.
They're pure wild mallards that live in
go out there
Minneapolis.
with my duck call just so I can feel good about myself, because it doesn't matter what I'm doing. They're coming here anyways.
So there's a couple different roosts for these mallards. There's one by the mall, and then there's one over by East River Road, like a roundabout.
There's
a pond in the middle of a roundabout that
isn't
stays
there a lake
open.
right down 65 too with an aerator on it?
There is, but there's very few ducks that
They're
hang
not
out
using
in
it this year?
They,
Usually
they
use
haven't
it.
used it for like 3 or 4 years now.
Really?
Yeah.
I wonder why that is.
I think they're using that roundabout on East River Road now, and
Huh.
and the Northtown. There's a pond up by Northtown Mall, and that's where the
Interesting.
majority of them are. And somebody's going out there and dumping bags of corn out there too. So,
Somebody.
well, I don't want them to. I want them to come feed
Yeah.
here.
That's hilarious.
I don't want them to feed them at the pond. I want them to feed them in my front yard.
But I think that
So when there's very little snow in the Dakotas for snow goose hunting, you'll usually get an event where you'll get a big warm up. Whatever there is there for snow is going to melt off, and those birds just poop shoot right through the Dakotas, and that's bad for us as snow goose hunters. So you get a year like this year where there's a lot of snow in the Dakotas, and it's going to hold them up. It's going to stack them up. You get those anxious birds that want to get north, but they can't. And as long as we can possibly hold them there in that pattern, even if they have to go north and then a snowstorm pushes them back south, if we get a couple of those that happen, that's really going to help us kill birds in the Dakotas. The worst case scenario has been the last few springs where there really is very little snow out there. And like you say, it's nice to drive out in all the fields, but it makes the migration so dispersed and so not concentrated.
Right.
You like I described earlier, driving 50 miles, not seeing a snow goose and coming up on them. You get less of that when they're stacked
yeah,
up.
when there's a legit snow line. And we talk about snow line, it like a lot of times it's not a tapering snow line. Like you have bare fields and then you reach a spot where there's 2 feet of snow. Like it is a snow line, like a legitimate line. And they, what a lot of times they'll do, these birds will still try to push. So they'll fly north.
Yep.
You'll see them leave the roost in the mornings. They all head north. And then a lot of times the mid part of the day is slow. You don't see much. And then all of a sudden all these birds start coming back because they can't find anywhere to go. And
there's a lot of snow geese. They'll fly 100 to 200 miles north and go feed. And people think they're going that far to feed, which is kind of true because they do feed. But mostly they're just checking. They're like, all right, let's fly north for a few hours, and we're going to see what's up there.
Yeah,
is there any open water? Is there any open fields? And then eventually they'll get hungry. They'll bomb into a field.
And they're trying to get north as fast as they can because these are the breeding adults. And the summers in the Arctic Circle are not very long. So they don't have a big window of opportunity to get this done.
Yeah, they need to get up there by early June and
hatch their eggs, raise their young.
And then get back on the migration trail.
Just do it all over again. So they have a very short amount of time. So there's a big sense of urgency with these birds. That's why they just keep pushing. They'll go as far as they can with that snow line. And there's been times in the Dakotas where there haven't been much snow, and there's trucks driving on ice, still ice fishing, and these geese are
standing
these
there
wads
too.
of adult geese are just roosting on these.
Yeah, ice.
Just on ice.
Yep.
And then feeding in the dry fields. There's no water around anywhere.
And a lot of times when that happens, you'll have snow geese that are stretched out from North Dakota to Louisiana.
Yep.
And not many in Louisiana, but there's still like some juvie pockets down there on the almost damn near the coastline into Arkansas, a couple in Missouri, a couple in Nebraska.
A lot of people don't like to chase those leading edge birds because they're the old ones and they're the old smart ones. They've seen every decoy
which is true. Your hunting's not going to be great on those.
It's not great.
But you get to see that show like that.
Yeah, that big
show
wad of migration. Yeah.
And I've done a lot of like what we'll call juvie hunting. In years past, I've been doing it since like 2013. So I've spent like 5 or 6 springs chasing juvies really hard, and that's when everybody else is putting their snow goose gear away. That's when we're really gearing up.
And your expense for those hunts is gas.
Yes. Oh God. And I'm not so excited to do that too much into the future because a lot of people do it now, where it used to be 5-6 years ago nobody was doing it.
And these are more patternable birds.
Yeah, and they're geese that are like haven't heard a shotgun for 6 weeks.
And also, so it's like our previous podcast we talked about like the molt migration with honkers, and this isn't the molt migration obviously, but these are your non-breeding. They might not even be the young of the year birds. Some of these are they're just not breeding age adults.
Yeah, small geese actually take 5 years to breed.
So they just don't have. There's no that urgency that's driving that main migration to get their breed. Raise their young. That's not there with these. Like they still go north.
And
it's
I
like,
think
why
there's
do
a
they
lot
even
of
go north? They don't need to because there really is no reason for them to. But it's
Right.
it's what they do by instinct. But they don't have that driving.
They're
urge.
not about to go stand on ice.
Yeah, no,
They're gonna
they
be
linger.
They're gonna be where it's 75 in the day and 45 at night, and that's just what they
But
want.
what that does, to use your term from our previous episode, is it makes them vulnerable
Right.
because now they're patternable. Now they'll feed out a field before they move on.
A lot of times they'll stick in an area for several weeks, especially if nobody's bugging them. And a lot of times they're so far behind the main migration and maybe so remote in location, nobody is bugging them.
Yeah, and that's why it's a fuel expense because you're putting on
Hundreds
of
miles and miles and miles. I mean,
find
we'll go out with like
small flocks.
Yeah, like a 6-man crew or an 8-man crew and no more than 2 people per vehicle just to get as many tires on the road as possible. And we'll cover every fucking gravel road we can trying to find a pod of snow geese somewhere. And when you find them, it's great. And the hunting can be great. But nowadays, it's like, took us 2 days to find this flock. And lo and behold, there's 2 other groups of hunters that also found it.
Trucks, and I don't recognize them. This isn't good.
Yeah, there's that happens, and there's just less juvies now for this spring, so I'm not going to be too eager to do it. And also, it did just start to wear on me, just going to the Dakotas and driving around for 12 hours a day.
Not seeing anything. That's a grind. It's
yeah,
it's tough.
Yeah, you drive 5 hours out there. And you go, all right.
It's a mental battle for sure.
Hopefully, in the next 3 days, we can find a pod of snow geese. Right. Yeah.
Yep, for sure. But I was going back to what we said before. There's that. It's great when you have the snow line because it concentrates all the birds. Mm-hmm. The bad part about that is it concentrates all the hunters. So now you're going to run into getting into fields, fighting the same birds. Trying to there's a group of hunters.
Yep.
You can see them in the other field. They also have 800 to 1,200 decoys out. It's like.
And it also becomes impossible to compete with that many snow geese that are in your area. Like sometimes if you're like, wow, there's so many snow geese in this area, there's hundreds of thousands of them. Like,
well, yeah, I mean, you think
even if you get on the field they're using, your first couple flocks might come in and do it. You're gonna bang them up, and then after that, they're gonna start lunch lining to a different field, and then it's over. Your morning's over for the most part because there's just you can't.
Decoys is a lot.
You can't compete with
but
hundreds of thousands
birds, live birds, or more.
Think how many of those birds are 1,000 yards in the air, and how many feeds can they see in the area?
All of them.
Yeah, pretty much. And then they look down at your 1,500, 2,000 socks, and they go, "I'll just avoid that."
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think they just kind of follow the tornadoes, which is why.
Oh, they definitely do that. You can see like when a legit snow goose feed sets up the tornado, and when it's on a good migration day, and you're watching these birds, they're mile high. And they're in every direction, and they literally just get sucked into the vortex. Not like by physics, but they see what's going on, and you just watch it. Every cloud of birds, because they kind of look like clouds when they're off on the distance. I think that's what I always call them. Clouds
and everybody
birds.
thinks
they just
too,
start wandering over, and they just start circling, and that's why they call it tornado.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
And it's a methodology. It's an instinct. System that snow geese have, and it's very effective for their survival. Very, very effective.
Well, it's a lot of eyes looking for danger.
I mean, yeah, even like when you're talking big wads of snow geese that work into your decoys, when you say kill them, a lot of times there's only like 100 that are within shooting range, even if it's a flock of 2,000. Yeah. So you still got 1,900 snow geese that were like, we'll just wait a little while. We'll hold back, let those juvies drop in.
Getting heart palpitations just thinking about it.
And snow geese are the most heavily hunted, pressured, intelligent birds, but they can have lapses in judgment because they stay safe for most of their days. They know what hunting is, but their day typically isn't even affected by it. I mean, you're talking about these areas where there's hundreds of thousands of snow geese, and there's a lot of hunters there, but how many of those snow geese are even getting shot at? Yeah. Because a feed will build up next to you of 50,000 snow geese. Well, there's 50,000 snow geese that never got shot at.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like sometimes your decoys, you do the best you can. Like you try to attract them to your field. But how many times have you seen they pass you up and they set down in a field that had no birds in it 5 minutes ago?
Right. And that's where
fields. That flock decided this field looks good for whatever reason. And then they draw in every other live bird around you. And you're like, shit.
And the law of diminishing returns come in too. Like we could set out 800 socks here, or we could set out 10,000 full bodies, and is it going to make a difference? Not when there's a feed of 50,000 next to you.
And
you know.
Yeah, and keep it in mind to not beat yourself up if you try this, because this was the lessons we learned the hard way. And this actually was a fall hunt, but we watched a feed, and there was probably, it's so hard to guess when numbers get this high, but I don't know, 20,000 birds in this feed, and this giant flock, as big in the air as what was on the ground, came by, circled them a few times, and not a single bird dropped out of that flock and joined the live birds on the ground, and they just did what snow geese did.
Just
to
kept
decoys
moving.
to live birds. They circled them, got down to that 80-yard range, and just decided, nope, we're going to go somewhere else.
It's in their nature, just like
It's
we're
like,
watching
oh,
the mallards
great.
here. Like I said, sometimes they circle 4 or 5 times and
It's
bail.
not much of a confidence builder when they won't decoy, if you will, to 20,000 live birds, and we have 450 fake ones.
Right. I like to watch a feed when I'm snow goose hunting, see if they're going back to it multiple days in a row. Sometimes you can find a feed and it's almost just like a migration feed. Like maybe it is like a pod of geese that flew up 100 miles and now they just chose this random field.
Well, you said like chasing feeds, and you don't have to chase feeds with
You
snow
don't.
geese. When
You
that
don't.
migration is moving, you're running traffic. And a lot of times, in the fall, and we'll talk about honkers, and you're like running traffic, you're like, oh, we're running traffic. Who knows what we'll do? But you pick a field. So I know a guy who guided out there for a while. He was at the time, he was like one of the most successful ones. And
For snows?
for snows, and what his philosophy was is he went and he found the best hiding field.
Sure.
He found the field that had corn that wasn't disked up, wasn't mowed down, still had 8 to 12 inches of stalk where maybe it was messy, lots of cob laying around and
That's a strategy
leaves.
a lot of guys have been using
And
this
so
spring.
he could
Yeah.
hide well. He could hide 8 blinds really well. That's all he cared about. He knew there was geese in the area, and he just wanted to hide well. Were there geese in that field the day before? No, they didn't have to be.
And I think that's a great strategy, too, for 2019 because the last, 5 years, it's become really popular to wear whites and then sit amongst,
Yep, we do it.
I do, too. I've been doing it the last
great.
5 years. Yeah, it's really cool.
It's a lot less dicking around.
No blinds to stubble. You stick the decoys in the ground, and you're done. You sit on your backboard and, sit in your wall of decoys. And when it works, it's great.
The downside, not as warm.
Definitely not as warm or dry.
Because you can tuck into those layout lines, and it can be 10 degrees out, and you get a nice bubble of warm air in there. And you don't really think of it. You might still be kind of chilly if it's really that cold. When you hop out to go chase a bird or fix decoys or whatever, you're like, you just start shivering instantly.
Yeah.
Like, holy crap. And then you get back in your blind, and it takes a long while for that bubble to build back up again.
Yeah.
You don't get that bubble when you're laying on backboards.
I've been hearing a lot of guys are abandoning their white hides this year. And
Really?
Getting the blinds back out of the spread and using blinds again. Using blinds,
Maybe they're just
using
it's something they're
A-frames.
getting,
Used to
wise
seeing
to.
those bodies.
Yeah.
And I mean, they do become accustomed to patterns. The donut hole spread.
Yeah, well, we've
Where
talked
you got
about.
the dense pocket, and then you pretty much got a perfect circle, maybe 80 yards to
With our
100 yards wide.
With our last conversation, and I already had my suspicions, and you confirmed a lot of those, and I'm not leaving holes anymore. There's no reason. I don't see any reason.
Just
I'm
adjust as you need.
I'm just putting decoys out.
Yeah, adjust as you need. Blobs are easy to adjust.
I like
if
to-
you notice,
I like to-
they seem to be landing over there
Yeah.
quite a
And
bit.
this makes no sense, really, but it does. I purposely try to be random, if that makes sense. Just because as humans, we fall into patterns so easily. And when you got an armful of silk decoys and you're out there walking, it's really easy to just get into two-step stick, two-step stick, two-step stick. And when you go back and look at that,
It looks too
It's a grid.
uniform. Yeah,
it's
looks way too uniform.
there's nothing natural about that. It's just nothing. So I'm I try to go, all right, I did one here, and I took 2 steps and put one there, and then 2. So next time I want to do 3, 2, 1. I'm kind of counting, just trying to not each armful I'm trying to do something different so that when I step back and look, and even then still you step back and you're like, crap.
So it looks more
It's
like
like a
birds
shape.
and not like like people put it
Yeah.
out.
But then all you got to do is go out, see there, and just pluck a couple out and reposition them, and it changes the whole
One nice
scheme.
thing about snow geese, though, is they tend to make hard lines themselves.
They
like,
do.
They do kind of like blob up into weird shapes, not like donut holes or anything, but they will kind of just make a strange blob on the ground. So if you wanted to do like just hard lines, like, all right, we're not going to put decoys past here, it's not a horrible strategy for
One
snow
year I was
goose
going to
hunting.
patent the comb spread.
The
'Cause
cone?
The comb.
The comb?
The comb spread, because we were the day we were scouting, we got permission for this field, and then we just sat there and watched them. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to set let's pay attention to what they're doing and set it up just like they're doing. And it was because there was taller stocks, it kind of forced them to
Go down the rows.
to be in line. So there was like that main kind of like a long body of, and all these little fingers that shot off down the rows. It looked like a giant comb, like kind of old Fonzarelli used to,
Hey, did you see
the
that
black ones.
infrared drone footage of mallards in the Arkansas timber?
I did not.
It was pretty cool. They went around and they did like infrared vision of so you could
If I
see all the
YouTube
heat.
infrared.
I don't know if it was. I saw it on Facebook or something when I was scrolling
Probably
through
on YouTube,
something.
too.
But it was really interesting how they just kind of like lined up. Like you got a duck leading other ducks through the woods, and it was just
Sure.
like strings of mallards
Huh.
going through the woods together. It
Interesting.
was kind of interesting. Like,
Yeah. So we set the comb spread up, and it didn't work. I mean, who knows if it would have worked? They just didn't decoy that day.
Your
A giant
snow
feed
goose
fed
hunt-
up in the next
yeah, your
field
snow
over.
goose hunt didn't work out, and that's not
Yeah,
uncommon.
But again, it set up, the feed set up in a field there was no geese in yesterday or the day before.
Oh, yeah,
That's
and
what happened. It's
They
like,
move around all the time too, and like a lot of night migration is going on with snow goose hunting. There's a lot of uncontrollable factors. That's why I like to be able to watch a field for a few days. Like, okay, that's a juicy feed. Let's watch it tomorrow, but the problem with that is you need days.
yeah,
You
right.
need days.
And
You need
people-
to have a 5-day trip.
It's hard to have that patience because you want to go out there and you're like, let's get set up, let's
Yeah.
start shooting. you
And
know?
a lot of my trips are weekends or extended weekends, like a Saturday, Sunday, Monday sort of deal, and you don't have those days to actually put together you need information and you need weather. So you need to, first of all, you need to find a good feed. It needs to be a consistent feed, and then you need to hunt it on the right day. So, and for all that to come together, you need time.
Yeah.
You
and
just
that's
you need to have time
tough to
out
sit
there.
on it.
That's why, like, if
Deer
you're
hunters are good at that.
yeah,
I mean, they're good at, like, they have their stands and, like, they only hunt on a certain wind, and I could see it kind of like that. A certain field could be that way depending on where the hill is set up. And it's
Right.
like, if you want that sun at your back and you want the birds to approach from a certain area, but again, you have to have a
Yes.
giant swath of time.
like best case scenario, you're going
Not
snow
many
goose
people
hunting
do.
for like a week, and you can get a couple of pin drops on your phone, to like where you're watching these feeds, and then talk to the landowner. Bust out your weather app, and like, okay, it's gonna be windy as shit on Thursday and good sun. It's Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we got to watch these 3 feeds, and we got to talk to these landowners, make sure they don't let anybody else in there to blow them out of there. Because the landowners want those geese gone a lot of times. So they're going to give permission.
What is your landowner strategy when you talk to somebody? Because and this is for any kind of hunting across the board, but when I go and I talk to a landowner and I get permission, and my buddy's always chewing in my ear to, like, get sole permission, and I feel kind of asshole-ish asking him for that because
It depends
it's not
on the
my land. So, like, how would you go about talking? Like, how would you word it?
For sole permission or just permission in general?
For, like, sole. So let's say you got permission. You knocked on a door, like, yep, and then there's other hunters in the area, and you don't want to show up in the field the next day with,
Well,
fighting
first
for
of
the
all, if
field.
you are going to hunt it the next day, I always ask, like, okay, so we're going to hunt it tomorrow, and is there anybody else that's going to be there? And, just so I know, and if they're there, we always play nice. And
We do too.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
And I let
there
I
won't be
always
any
let them know,
problems if anybody is
yeah.
out there. There won't be any
I've
fist
tried
fights.
to weasel in a few fields that had permission already by saying, like, and if there's somebody there, that's not a problem. We usually just hunt together, or we'll go
Try to
somewhere
explain,
else.
like, sometimes you can explain to a farmer, like, hey, if we go hunt that field tomorrow, we're going to get 10 birds. But if we hunt it on Thursday with that super windy, super good sun, we're likely to get 50 plus instead of.
Right.
So if you could do us a favor and hold it,
Right. Yeah.
we would happily return with some whiskey for you or something,
Yeah,
you know.
that goes a long way.
And some people don't give a shit, you know.
No.
They're like, oh, all right, yeah, I just will tell everybody no until Thursday because you guys got it locked down. Yeah, nice to meet you. And some guys are like, I want them fuckers gone, and whoever knocks on this door is going to go out there and shoot them. One time I had a really weird thing happen. We found a juicy little spot, just fucking juice. And I went up to the driveway. And I was about to knock on the door, but the guy came out his garage door, and he was going right for his truck. I was like, oh, excuse me, sir. I was like, hey, man, you mind if, I'm from Minnesota, out here doing a little snow goose hunt. Mind if we shoot them birds off of your field? He goes, kill all them fuckers. Yes.
Yes.
All right, man. Well, hey, we're going to set up some decoys. We'll be out there tomorrow morning, just so you expect. And he goes, oh, fuck no, you won't. I was like, what? He goes, you're not going to put a decoy in that field. I don't want you attracting geese here. I want you to
really?
shoot them now and get them out of there. And I was like,
Oh, wow.
and you kind of have that moment where you're dumbfounded. You don't
Right,
really
like,
know what to say.
Wasn't expecting
And like
that.
with that, he like got in his truck, like, all right, well, have a nice day, and pulled away like with my jaw still on his driveway. And I was like,
Right, because you had to be like,
So
well,
and it was like a sheetwater field, so we're not about to go jump it.
Right.
That was not an option.
Yeah,
we were about
good
to
luck.
four-wheeler in the next morning, and we had good weather conditions. We had good everything for the next morning, and we ended up just going somewhere else the next morning. That sucked.
that would suck. So kind of a similar story. We had a field where we asked, got permission to sheet water, and it was actually pretty close to a refuge. And we were running options because we kept running into leases, which you'll find a lot around refuges.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of just keep pushing further and further away. And we found a nice field that had some sheet water in it. Didn't have any birds in it, but we're like, it looks sexy. We can hide in it, and it'll be good. Knock on the door. He's like, yeah, I want to hunt geese here. Next day, he's like, absolutely, shoot all them fuckers. He's like, the honkers and the specks too. I'm like, I'd like to. Appreciate your consent. However, I'm going to keep my equipment and my right to hunt and just shoot the white ones.
I love a good
Thanks.
genocidal farmer. Out in Wisconsin, out by my cabin, we get that all the time with sandhill cranes. Like, hey, can I hunt geese out there? Only if you shoot the cranes. It's been said to me like 3 times now, to where it's like,
Don't I wish?
there seems to be a pattern here.
There's a lot of them, though. I mean, not to jump too far off subject, but at some point in time,
We'll be hunting 'em.
We're getting a season here because the numbers they're expounding exponentially.
You're up by Forest Lake or Stacy.
Stacy,
I mean, you don't
yeah.
have to go very much further northeast.
Dude,
You hit that
last
really
year,
good pod.
Last year I was working in Ramsey and literally had cranes in the yard in town.
Do you ever hunt Crex Meadows?
In Wisconsin.
Yeah.
No,
That's
There's like shit ton over there.
I think they've been like getting like 8K for sandhills.
Yeah.
A lot of them go into Minnesota to
Yep.
feed, and then they'll go around like the Grantsburg, Wisconsin area to feed
all
too.
that in the Minnesota side, the Shangotana, St. Croix State Forest, that whole swath of bog area holds a ton of sandhills.
Remind me to tell you a secret about
sandhills.
Crex Meadows too when we're done with this
Okay.
podcast that nobody else can know.
I'm in. But yeah, so going back to come back with the thing whiskey. We had another guy we talked to, and it's kind of a funny story because I go out to talk to the guy, and he had me. I was his conversation prisoner for a good 45 minutes.
That happens.
He wasn't letting me go, and he literally said it. He's like, "I'm sure you got places to be, but I never get to talk to anybody." I'm like, "Fuck, I'm gonna be here for a while." And so it just, we got permission, but he, kept the conversation going, and then after the fact, he's like, "All right, well, have a good time. If you ever want to come back, all you gotta do is bring me a 12-pack of Mountain Dew."
Nice.
And I'm like, "All right, I'll keep that in mind." We've never been back to that thing. It's just the nature of spring snow goose hunting. It's like,
But if
when
you're
you
ever
have
in
time
need,
off.
yeah. If you're ever in need of like a traffic spot, though, you
Yeah,
could set a
yeah.
spread there and see what happens.
Well, and I don't know how often his land would be good for it because it was a flooded hayfield, and that year he had ice dams set up on the creek, and it flooded that field. So it's just
cool.
kind of a freak thing that happened that year.
Oh,
Otherwise,
sure.
it's just a hayfield.
Hayfields are great for migrators, though.
I mean, if you
No
got the
mud.
visibility, yeah, you can
No
get in
mud.
and out of it really easy. But generally, it's like, oh man, there were so many mallards and pintails that day.
Oh,
though.
yeah.
Holy crap! I saw my first collared goose that hunt.
No shit.
Yeah.
What do you mean collared on a Canada or a speck?
On a snow goose,
It was, huh?
yellow.
Motherfucker.
I didn't even shoot it.
Did it come into range?
Yes.
What do you mean?
I wasn't in the decoys. So they weren't decoying. They were down in that flooded area and down by the creek. We kind of tried to stay away from, we didn't want to move right in on them. because they were like roosting there. They were just there all day, all night.
Sure.
Like they weren't leaving that area. So we kind of went up the field to hopefully, peel some flocks up into a feed, if you will. Didn't work. So the wind was right. I'm like, you know what? I think if I sneak around this way, I can get into a good pass shot because, birds were coming in, migrating birds are coming in, and they're going right to the live birds. I'm like, oh, there's a little ditch there with tall grass. If I set up right there, I can shoot incoming birds. The main group won't hear it because the wind's blowing my shot the other direction. This is perfect. So I take the time, and I get to this spot with this field where the hay was like cut super short. Actually, I think it was a wheat field, but it was like super short. I was like super exposed.
Right.
And I'm doing the army crawl really slow, and anytime a flock comes over, I just stay still and then, keep going. And I'm working my way there, and this flock comes in, and they, when they do it like snow geese, they all got up, kind of do the spin, and then get back down, which that's just kind of what they do. And so when they did that, I was just laying there, trying to stay still. And this pair like spin off and they fly right over me. I'm like, oh, these would be in range. I'm like, but I'm so close to where I want to be. I don't want to ruin it for two birds. So I'm kind of sitting there I'm actually on my back at this point. And as they come right over the top of me, I'm like, oh shit. And I saw the yellow neck collar. I was like, oh. And then by the time I was like,
oh,
I had the
my
little
God.
devil angel thing going on, and then they were out of range by the time I just didn't make a decision. I'm like, fuck, should have shot, because by the time I actually got down there, just as my luck would have it, the wind did like a 180, and they were no longer coming in. They were coming in from the opposite side. So now it was a jump shoot.
I wouldn't sleep for a month.
They finally and I got busted. They took off. I got to shoot a cripple that was already crippled.
Zero neck collars.
Zero neck collars. I shot a blue goose. And then I found I ended up walking out there with two birds. I had a blue and a snow. So maybe I did shoot two of them. But this was an unfortunate thing about it. There was and this is probably a jump shooter probably did this. It wasn't me. I swear to God it wasn't me. But there was an injured pintail. Drake. Beautiful.
Or it could have just broke its wing or something.
Wing. Yeah, he had a broken wing, and I'm like,
it happens.
God, I'd like to put that thing out of its misery, but explain that one to the conservation. Well, I only shot it because it was already hurt. I don't think that one's going to fly, so kind of had to leave it.
At least the bald eagles chase that
a
snow
fox
goose.
or a bald eagle or a hawk or something it wasn't going to go to waste.
You get awesome eagle watching, too, when you're following the snow goose migration.
Sure.
There is a ton of bald eagles since you get so many naturally crippled birds because of the nature of how dense their flocks are, and then also crippled birds from hunters and jump shooters and that sort of thing.
Jump shooters get a lot of...
But anyways, we should actually take a moment to talk a little bit about like pass shooting and jump shooting, and like how to do it effectively and ethically, because if you look online, people just rag on pass shooters, rag on jump shooters,
ditch piggers,
all that stuff. Well, this year I'm excited. This year I've got a renewed spark. Like actually two guys at my work last spring, they went out, got into a good pass shoot, put down 103 in a ditch, and I'm like,
believe it.
Just because they had a good line coming over them. I mean, they weren't screwing up anybody's hunt.
Nope.
They weren't doing anything unethical.
No.
They're just banging at geese coming over this tree line unexpectedly. Got 103 of them. I'm like, that sounds...
No decoys?
No decoys. That sounds fucking awesome.
No, nothing.
That's what I want to do.
Just you and your gun and
so,
some shells.
I mean, like, yeah. This spring, I'm definitely going out there with a renewed interest and trying to get underneath, like, a good line and trying out, like, my skills, 35 to 45-yard bangs on some snow geese if they're coming over low. But... there's a lot of guys that are going out there doing it, and I think this is a good year for it, especially since decoying has been going so bad.
Yes.
But if you're going to be a jump shooter, you really got to make sure you got permission on these fields. Like, you don't...
And I refuse to believe that they all do.
Like, last year, we got permission on this one field, and we went out there just to watch it. And there's two groups of jump shooters, like, sneaking in there. And we went and talked to them, and I put them on my Snapchat story. And then I even got a message like, hey, man, that was us. We had permission. I'm like, no, you didn't.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, because I talked to the landowner, and he said that nobody else did. But besides the point, that happens all the time. Just, make sure you're getting permission. There's nothing wrong with jump shooting. Make sure if you're jump shooting in the mornings, like a pond, watch it at night to make sure a bunch of specks don't go in there and a bunch of ducks. And listen in the morning as well, because some will show up overnight sometimes. You get some night migrators. So make sure you're not hearing quacks and freaking pintail whistles.
The double
Specklebelly. Yeah, because that sort of thing
Speckle.
gives jump shooters a bad name. And there's not, dude,
and nobody wants it.
there are plenty of roosts out there
don't do
that have nothing but snows,
Yep.
blues, and Rosses on
Yep.
them. And when somebody goes in there and wipes out 500 of them on one good jump, more power to them. I have nothing to say
Yeah.
about that. Good work. That's what we're supposed to be killing these things
I
to
have
save the tundra.
multiple stories
Of jump shooters ruining hunts,
of
and
jump shooters ruining my pass shots.
that happens
I
too.
take
And
my
pass shoot-
time to sneak into the right spot,
Yeah.
and then it happens every time. I get right where I want to be, and then all the birds pick up, which usually at first that doesn't bother me because, like I said before, sometimes they get up, they spin around, and they put back down, and actually you'll have some little bird, a couple groups that'll spin off from that, and those are the ones that you get to shoot. So I kind of get ready, but then all of a sudden you hear the report boom, 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 from the opposite side of the field. Like, son of a bitch, and they all just blow out. And you're like,
Sure.
just wasted 40 minutes of my life trying to get
Yeah.
in here. And it's happened to me at least 3 times. And I'm in the middle of nowhere. It's like, how can this continue to happen to me?
Yeah, I like to get away from a lot of people. Number one, if you're jumping and pass shooting, you got the potential to piss some people off. So I like to not be around other people when I'm doing it, just so I'm not trying to screw up anybody else's snow goose hunt. There's lots of snow geese to go around. And like when it comes to pass shooting, like you're looking for high wind, tree lines, that sort of things to get underneath them.
Yep.
Like something where they're bouncing from a field to the next field over,
Snow.
and they won't hear your shots. You got a tree line or
Yep.
something to block it. And with jump shooting, just making sure you get permission, and then you're looking for like banks, like a bank along a pond that you can come up over. Bring 2 guns, both fully loaded with
Wow, 2
as many guns as you can carry, I
Wow.
suppose. Like just get in there, get the goal is to get as many
You jump
shots
up Rambo style, one in
Yeah.
each hand.
That's-
Boom, 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 boom,
that's-
boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, something similar.
Really?
Yeah, I mean,
You're not
the
even
goal is
shouldering it,
yeah,
you're literally hip shooting.
just get as much steel into the white cloud as you can before they escape
and then
range.
clean up the cripples.
I don't even think it's a bad idea for people to use really expensive shot shells when they jump shoot, like tungsten or bismuth, because those pellets will go through birds.
Yeah.
Like if you're shooting like tungsten 3-shot or tungsten 4-shot or 2-shot or bismuth 5s, like you're gonna have a
Zip
lot.
through, get that bird behind them.
You're gonna hit. Yeah, you'll bust through skulls and it'll go through right to the next bird, and you can get some pretty.
It's the 88 Magnum from.
Yeah, you can, as I like to say, cut
can't think of
paths
that
through
movie.
them.
Johnny Dangerously.
And I've
You
never
might be
been
too
a
young for that
yeah, I'm
movie,
too
but-
young. I've never been a great jump shooter myself. I don't really have the patience to belly crawl through a field like a mud pit. So I'm just
Yeah, I don't get the big. Like, I'm with you. Like I don't have anything against jump shooters as long as they're doing it ethically and they're not shooting accidental birds and the non-target birds. That's not good. But I just don't get as big of a thrill from it. Now pass
Yeah.
shooting I like because you're getting that. You're getting to watch the birds. You're getting to watch that migration, and then it's kind of then you still have the marksmanship of it. It's like you're
Yeah.
actually picking out birds and shooting birds.
Right.
It's not pray and spray, and then let's pick up the carnage afterwards and chase
Yeah.
down cripples and. Yeah,
That's another thing, too,
pile picks
about,
are
like-
great, but I mean, and I think that just goes back to my hunting style across the board. And I've talked about it numerous times in this podcast about why I like to bow hunt, but I'm not a trophy hunter. It's that's how I like to do it.
There's a good or strategy to jump shooting too. The biggest problem with jump shooting is cripple roundup, and you have to have a game plan. Like if you're jumping like a ginormous pond in South Dakota or lake, I mean they call them ponds, but how are you going to get all these damn birds?
Yeah, you
and
better
how
have a
are you
kayak
gonna,
or something.
Yeah, a kayak or multiple dogs, and how are you going to do it efficiently? The best jump shooters I know can hit multiple jumps per day. And then you're really putting up some big numbers. Like if you get like 250, 100,
So many. You gotta clean all
300,
those.
you're getting like 500 to 600 snow. I've seen guys do over 1,000 snow geese in a day just by
Oh.
jumping. But these are guys who
You know
have
how much
like
work that is.
it's cripple roundup work, and the faster you can round up, and you want to grab every single cripple because when you're jumping, you're getting a lot of adults. And bands. You do not. Yeah. So you got to have a cripple plan, and you don't want to jump a spot that's going to have an impossible cripple roundup because you will be there all day. It's going to be more work than you could have ever imagined. So, like, if you're going out to the Dakotas or anywhere with the specific game plan of jumping, try to stay away from the crowds. Bring an ATV, like just for
Oh, yeah.
Bring
Yep.
an ATV. Bring as many dogs as you can,
Man, they can run fast.
and sleds, and then like cripple ammunition, like steel 6-shot or steel 5-shot or whatever. Or whatever your old duck loads are, bring those out there. And
Your first hunt of snow geese is almost always like a bag of random shells that you have left over from the fall.
I mean, we've all done it too, where we did a jump shoot. Like when I did it when I was a teenager. You do a jump shoot and you go, oh shit, how are we gonna get all these birds? And then like
the wind's blowing them out into the main lake or
and then you're
like,
muddy
oh,
and you're wet, and it's like 4 hours later, and you're like this one goose is still walking away from you through the mud. You're like, motherfucker.
He's just out there swimming around.
Yeah,
that sucks. But we have started we'll bring a kayak with us. We'll do it in the fall too. It comes in handy, because we like to. A lot of times there's a spot in North Dakota that we always hit, even in the spring. It's just been a good historical spot, but there's a body of water there, and it's just nice to have that there if you need it just to chase down cripples. It's way better than having to go all the way around
or wait for them. Yeah, it's
go
impossible.
through a cattail swamp to get to where you can finally access. And if it's frozen, that's one thing, but if it's open, it's like, you just jump in the kayak and go get them. I mean, it's
there's nothing worse
nicer.
than doing a jump shoot and then having birds that are not collectible. Like, what a waste.
Yeah.
I mean, they're bald eagles. They're going to get them by tomorrow. I mean, it's not like they're going to suffer or anything, but
I'm gonna paint a kayak white and make it look like a big swan and just paddle right out and do a roost.
why the hell not? Let me know how it goes. You remember, dude, back when I first started snow goose hunting.
Legal?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Let's see why it wouldn't be.
No, wait. Can you shoot on open water?
I think so.
Whatever.
Whatever. I think you can. Like
back when I first started snow goose hunting, there was a bunch of guys cutting out cow silhouettes.
Yeah, I
and then
remember
walking.
that.
And I did it when I was like 16. Me and my brother went to the Dakotas. We had a cow silhouette that we'd made out of plywood, and we'd never thought about wind consideration. So I remember taking this thing out of the truck. I grabbed one side. Tom grabs the other side. We took like 4 steps into this field. The wind grabbed us, yanked us off our feet.
Oh my
Well,
gosh.
we're kids.
Yeah.
And just dragged us like 20 feet through the mud. We look at each other like, well, this is not gonna work. We didn't have any snow goose decoys at the time, being teenagers, but we were still trying to go out there and kill something. And we actually would even set up, like back in those days, I remember a couple times we'd get permission on big feeds of snow geese and go out there with layout blinds, stubble them, and see what happens.
Yeah, you could have got. I mean, I wouldn't have been super surprised if you had a story following that where we shot the shit out of them. I mean,
we shot 4 one time, I think. But that was after like a 2-hour of the best speckle belly show of my life.
Oh,
like them just feeding all around us and stuff. Like, this wasn't a waste.
I got covered up under a flock of cacklers one time. I
Really?
mean, there was 300 to 500 cacklers in this one flock, and they just kept circling the field I was in. And my buddy was out scouting, and I stayed back in the field. And this flock, and so what we had been seeing in our scouts was mostly dark geese with a couple snows mixed in. I don't know where the main wad of whitebirds were. So he went to go find those main wad of whitebirds. I stayed back when this flock came in, and they just kept circling, getting lower and lower each time. And I'm not talking in yards. I'm talking in feet. They never actually put down, but they just belly scraping with their wing, just like flying over, doing strafing runs. And I'm straining my eyes trying to find that one white bird mixed in. Like, give me one. Just give me one. That's all I want. But I was sitting there with my, just a huge shit-eating grin on my face because the show was unbelievable. When they're so close, you can see their eyes moving around. And, yeah, we had the e-collar going, but I couldn't hear it. I mean, they drowned it out. They are so loud.
Yeah.
They are so stinking loud.
One thing I remember about that hunt when I was 16, watching all those specks when we just covered our layout blinds up and let the birds feed around us, was peeing out of my flag hole because I couldn't. we were there for hours, just hours and hours bird watching pretty much because the snow geese were on one end of the field and we were covered up in the specks. But
I saw
it was a blast.
Another weird thing I saw. We had divers land in the field, dry field. Redheads landed and walked around eating corn in this dry field. You know how stupid and
that's crazy. But a lot of those
a redhead looks walking on dry land.
A lot of divers come up and they're mixed in with that Maine snow goose migration, and what they're looking for a lot of times is sheet water. also,
Sure,
yeah, because the sheet water will melt because it's shallow and it's got a nice dark background. And that's the only open water in these areas. All the big water's completely froze up still. So one morning I remember, this was actually 2013, spring 2013. We had so many redheads, and I mean they're just cruising through our spread, looking to see if there was open water or sheet water in our field, but there's tens of thousands of them, and they wouldn't stop. And it got to the point where I was like, if I stand up, am I going to get hit by a redhead? And we had to be super careful when we were shooting. Like there's multiple times we were shooting at snow geese, and I could see ducks like in my peripheral.
Coming in, you're like, no.
Like
no.
in my peripheral vision, like bang, bang, shooting at a snow geese. Like, oh, that's a duck, and we'll shoot around him.
Yeah, that's tough.
But those ducks can just be crazy when they're looking for sheet water in fields. Like that day, I promise you, we could have caught 100 redheads with fishing nets.
That's crazy.
Just by like puffin hunting.
Yeah,
just like sticking the net up. I guarantee you.
Subsistence hunt.
That would have been so cool though if we did have nets, like to catch them, check them for a band,
And then let them go.
just release them, like just throw up the net, like I got another
catch
redhead.
and release, right? It's catch and release.
Is it hunting? No.
Fishing. There's a blur of the lines there. There's no
Till
laws
one
against fishing
dies,
for it.
like
Yeah,
kills
then,
itself in the net,
yeah.
and you're like,
Then
oh
it could
shit.
break a wing or something. Yeah,
Going
but that
to-
was the thing. Is that we've seen them in the fields with sheet water, because the divers like water. But these ones landed in a dry ass field, and we're just walking around, and they're so clumsy. They're not built for walking on land. Their
can't,
feet are way back on their. I mean, they did it.
No,
but
they
look
can.
Stupid.
Yeah, they look stupid as hell.
They literally were like falling over. They kept like face planting, like their chest would hit the ground and they'd pop back up, take a few more steps, plop down. And they weren't in it long. They would only be they'd fly down. They would eat a little bit. Like I'm talking 2, 3, 4 minutes tops, and then they would pick up and fly around.
And it just goes back to the waterfall spectacle that is spring snow
That's
season.
super cool. Those, man, I really wish they'd do that a trophy tag system for ducks. Those shovelers, man.
I think everybody who's ever been snow goose hunting has said that. Like, man, if I could just what if I could get a
God,
tag?
they would make so much money at it. They would. If you could charge $50 a tag, and I guarantee every person that goes out there would spend an extra $50 for a chance at a true
Why
trophy.
Not? Like, if I just see one, especially if you could just buy it on your phone.
Yeah, I know some
Like,
people
look
are
at
like, well, then you'd have people they'd shoot. They'd kill one, but they would wreck it where they couldn't mount it, and then they would just dump it in the mud. And like, okay, yeah, you know what, you're right. That probably will happen. But again, what is get a wildlife biologist out there. What would be the overall actual impact of the population be? It wouldn't be. There wouldn't be one. Even with people that break the law.
And you know what,
too?
One thing I've noticed about hunters is they tend to think other hunters aren't good. And all the studies about, like, especially with like the early teal season in Wisconsin and Michigan, they have secret watchers for those hunts because they're
only supposed to shoot teal.
Only supposed to shoot teal, so they'll count how many non-teal species get killed, and they also count how many non-teal species are attempted to be killed. And so these are federal game wardens, and if your state ends up getting a 10% attempt rate at non-teal species, they will shut down your teal season. And so when they opened up these teal seasons in Wisconsin and Michigan, they had some federal watchers come out there. And could you guess what the attempt rate was sitting at after like 3 years?
It's probably pretty low.
It's like 1%.
Yeah.
Barely any. I mean, so I think we need to actually give a little bit of credit where credit's due. I mean, 99% of us hunters are all ethical, good hunters, and we think that other people are out there shooting wood ducks.
It's like any element of society. Like, you only really think about the extremes. They're the ones that make the news. They're the ones that get people's emotions all riled up. And, yeah, you're right. The vast majority of them they're abiding by the laws. And they don't want to. And nobody wants a ticket.
Right.
I mean, and for anybody who's ever, there was one year went fishing and broke teenagers, and we didn't buy licenses, and we were out fishing, and then like it just isn't fun. Like, you think you're gonna get checked. It's like you're not enjoying your pastime. And we ended up buying licenses that year because we had this boat pull up to us that looked very official.
Yeah.
Didn't turn out to be official, but he pulls up and he goes, "I got a question for you boys." We're like, "Oh shit!" It's like, "Do you guys know the difference between a muskie and a pike?" We're like, yeah. A guy reaches in his live well, pulls out about a 3 to 5 pound muskie, This is on white bear. And he's like, what's this? We're like, that's a muskie. Shit. And he throws it back in the lake. He's like, all right, thanks, guys. And we all just, huge collective sigh of relief. We're like, I'm getting my license after this. I don't care who I have beg, borrow, and steal. This is too stressful. I can't take this.
Yeah.
It's not fun. So it's like if you're out there purposely doing illegal shit, and there are people that do that, I guarantee you're not having fun unless that's just who you are. Unless you're just that big
Getting
of a
your
prick
jollies from the risk.
you're sticking it to the man. Then that's just who you are. And I guarantee you it doesn't stop at poaching. I mean, you probably break every law you possibly can because you're just an asshole.
Right.
I mean, there's just there's a certain number of the population of assholes. They're just going to have it. It has it. Everybody has it.
It's too bad Minnesota doesn't have that teal season, though, in my opinion. Because
that is a Pandora's box to have that debate. I know last time you wanted to bring up some controversial stuff. We can
the teal season's pretty
definitely
controversial
talk about that. Yeah, because
other
goose
people
hunters?
think that other hunters suck, and that's kind of the debate. We've been offered the teal season from the feds since Michigan and Wisconsin have been, and they elected to take it, and I think Iowa as well, and Iowa does too now. And Minnesota elected not to take it, and that's too bad. I think it's denying opportunities for Minnesota hunters.
It is denying, and the science behind it, we should touch on that, is that teal are calendar migrators. They don't need a cold front to push them out.
No, they migrate usually starting in early August. They're coming out of Canada.
Early.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think
blue wings.
Blue wings. Yeah, green wings you'll see late in the season. I mean, it's not
every year.
It's
like,
not super rare.
This guy got lost. Like, no, he didn't.
No. You shoot green wings in
late all the time.
October, even into November in Minnesota. You'll shoot a green wing here and there, but blue wings are typically through the state, almost like by the time duck season starts, they're half gone.
Yeah, most of them are gone.
But
a lot of them.
And in the next 3 weeks, they are all gone.
Yeah.
It's pretty rare to shoot a blue wing teal after a week or two into our season. So there's another state too that has a teal season, but they do it some other way instead of just a teal only season. They call it like bonus birds or something. I can't remember, but we don't offer it in Minnesota primarily because
we don't like giving
because people
we don't
bitch.
like doing stuff here.
Yeah,
in the state.
And there's a problem when it comes to just the tradition of duck hunting that affects our regulations. People are more concerned with their traditions being kept intact than getting good hunts through proper wildlife management.
So there's a huge part of that.
So
for sure.
The duck season starts. What is it? The third Saturday in September, and it's been that way since the 70s or the 60s. I can't remember, but it's been that way for 40, 50 years at least. Yeah. Migrations have been changing. Migration timetables have been changing. Right. Migration species timetables have been changing. Species populations have been changing. Dynamics of ducks in our state have been changing, but our opening day stays the same, and there's just no science behind it. But here's the thing: 95 or 98% of all duck hunters they're opening day duck hunters.
Right. Yeah.
So when the legislature starts talking about changing something in duck hunting, you're talking about changing 98% of duck hunters' tradition.
It's a big reason why we have a fishing opener.
Yeah, and when you start talking about the legislatures themselves, what kind of letters and phone calls do you think they're going to be receiving? Okay, like the biologists say maybe we should move our season dates and maybe do this and do that. Like a lot of people want to be able to hunt mallards later in the season in Minnesota because it closes so early.
Right.
And we get late mallards that show up much later. And it's too hard to break through the barrier of overwhelming negativity when it comes to the 5% of us that really want to adjust these regulations to improve our hunting season. But 95% of people don't have a hunting season. They have a hunting tradition that's an opener. They go to their opener spot, they go with their buddies, they get drunk, they're away from the wives, and they don't want that tradition to be changed, and I can understand that to a certain degree, and I'm not going to say I'm not fucking mad at those assholes.
Probably not so much with duck hunting, but with the fishing, I mean, it's a big moneymaker for a lot of resorts. So there's one bombing right now. At least it's not cupped out over that bird. There it is, right there. Dude, oh, geez, right over the house. God, even I could hit those.
I doubt it.
Yeah, you're probably right. Well, there's no pattern this close. You almost got to purposely miss so you don't
Yeah, they're landing on the roof right now and then
turn 'em-
jumping down.
Turn them into hamburger.
You can see all the landing marks on my roof.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, the little wing tips in the snow. Man, they don't mess around. They literally throw that stuff down their throat. That's cool.
Yeah, they are
that's
here
a good
for
aquarium.
Yeah, they are here for a purpose, and they get it done, and then they get the hell out of here. They are definitely not comfortable hanging out in somebody's front yard. They don't want to be there.
Right. Well, I think one of the biggest tradition's part of it, but I hear one of the biggest voices against the teal season I hear are the goose hunters. And that's us. I mean, I love field hunting geese, but people don't want their roost busted.
That's true.
You hear that bitch when we have a youth season here that takes place before the regular duck season. And it happens to us every year. We set up on this field, has geese in it.
It's just,
and we hear the shots and we hear all our geese take off.
It's a part of due diligence when you scout for geese is knowing where the roost is, A, and B, if the roost is safe. Because that whole argument about keeping the roost safe doesn't really hold water anymore because you can hunt the roost for geese.
Yeah, you can set up on water now.
So if somebody's going to,
yeah, but a lot of people didn't want that either.
That's true. But it's just part of due diligence.
But it's greediness. It's selfishness, really, if we're being honest with ourselves, because it's you only want it the way you do it. I want a field hunt. I don't want anybody to water hunt because it messes up my field hunt.
Well, I think
not everybody can have permission.
Yeah, somebody is going to go into that pond that has permission. I'm not going to hate on them for that. Especially somebody maybe they're not as an experienced goose hunter. They don't know about blowing up roosts or whatever, that sort of thing. It's their uncle's pond.
Sure.
Their uncle tells them there's been a couple hundred geese sitting in the pond. You guys should go hunt it. So some kids go in there and they don't know what they're doing. They blow out the geese.
And even if they do, maybe it's they're super busy working and they got a free day off.
They have every right to.
And they have one day they can go put some geese on the ground and they're going to hunt water and it's your roost. Sorry, man.
I know too. When you scout a field, you got to know it's a part of your factor into your goose hunt. All right, so we got this field. There's a little problem though. What's the problem? Well, they're going to a fucking public pond to roost at night. Okay, so what do you think? Well, I think somebody might hunt it.
Right. It's probably going to get bumped.
It could. But if they're coming from a refuge, that's not an issue. If they're coming from the center of a town, that's not an issue.
Plants.
You got to do your due diligence. Is my roost safe, or is at least one of my roosts safe?
Yeah. Well, yeah. In a perfect world, you got multiple roosts.
Because and then you just roll the dice. I mean, if that's your field and the roost isn't safe. You know what? Go out there, roll the dice. If somebody blows it up in the morning, don't be getting on social media these motherfuckers blowing up my roost, these dumb hunters. Like you said, who knows what these guys, they work hard, they're kids. Yeah. They're taking every opportunity that they have presented to them. The same
legal,
thing
you gotta let them alone. You got to leave them alone. If they're within their legal right,
What do you think? Is that a black duck?
Oh, it's pretty dark.
Oh, watch this.
No,
look at this. Look at this. Look at this.
That is pretty dark. Oh my God.
What do we got? 50 bombing in?
Yeah, you should have been.
Look for bling. Look for bling.
Put your feet down. Okay, there you go. Oh, no, I don't see anything. We got more coming in yet too. I don't know. That one was pretty dark, but I don't know. I don't think it was dark enough. I was trying to look at the speculum. It wasn't quite purple.
Right.
I don't know.
Some of them are just super dark.
No, I think she's just dark. Maybe.
And some of them are super light.
Maybe one. There she goes. That's the one we were.
Yeah, that wasn't no black.
No. Oh, it's like
I'm just excited to see
it's like you speculate if one is a black until you see one. You're like, oh yeah, that's what they look like.
So
that's why they're called black ducks.
3 years ago, a hen got up out of here. She was just by herself, and she flew right into that White House across the street.
Oh really?
Yes, right into it. And I was like, holy shit! And she was just sitting in the yard down there. And
these things are
I was like,
damn near stepping on each other.
Yeah, they land right on each other. That's another reason I kind of abandoned the whole theory.
Yeah. Well,
they need room to land. They sure fucking don't.
Yeah. Maybe they like it, but they don't need it.
Yeah.
I thought about that too. And it's right straight down. That's just straight Arkansas
Boom.
timber. Oh, Mark coming in right here.
Yeah, here's another.
Dude, that one's literally she stopped beating her wings and just.
Okay, we got about 75 in the yard right now. This is starting to get pretty out of control.
This is what you call juicy. This would be a juicy feed.
This is a juicy feed.
Oh,
right
there they go.
Whoa.
I moved too much.
See all the snow they kicked up when they left?
Let's see if they'll come back. Let's fire up if I can get this Snapchat thing going. Yeah, let's see. Are they going to come back around? The curse of the recording. Yep. Curse of the recording. Come on. Come back around.
Too much snow.
I hate them. They never do it when you want it. Isn't that that's story of hunting right there? Even hunting with my phone. Oh, sure. The moment I put my phone down, you got to be shitting me. All right, here we go. They're going to do it. They're flying around.
If anybody has mallards like fly over their house, you've ever seen them, like, oh, there's ducks flying around. It's a nice day out. It's warm. You sure see a lot of mallards flying. Put some corn in your yard. They will land in your yard. I get questions all the time from Snapchat. How do you get ducks to land there? I put corn there.
Right, they see it.
What else do you do? Nothing. I wait. Like, how fast do they find it? And this is no shit. I have never put corn out and had it sit there uneaten for 24 hours.
Wow.
Like, for the first day of the season, like day one, they are eating that corn.
Did you put it out the day after duck season closes?
I put it out when I start to notice the winter mallards in the metro. And they don't start showing up here until, like, everything is really froze out. And then you start to get a lot of good metro mallards.
I got some on video landing. That's just cool. I never tire of that image. Cuffed out mallards. Never. That's just awesome. Just like why you do it right there.
Yeah, me neither. And they come in so cool, like in this tight little hole.
Yeah, that's awesome. Big wads finishing in your face, coming in tight little holes.
Right into my little ice hole.
What are we talking about again? Oh,
Snow geese?
I think we're talking about
teal
hunting,
season?
I think. I'm not sure.
What were we talking about?
Yeah, well, we went down a rabbit hole with I don't know how we got from snow geese to a teal season.
Yeah, it happens. So if we could draw it back, I mean, like, to a summary of, like, 2019 spring snow goose hunting.
We haven't even, we were going to get into lake strategies, and we haven't
did.
even done that. We did a little bit.
We did a lot of it. Talked about jumps, talked about pass shooting. I mean, decoy strategy, diminishing returns.
What we haven't had in a lot of years is messy ass fields.
A good thing and a bad thing.
Yep, it's going to be. And those roads out there are going to be shitty.
They fucking suck in the spring.
Because all that snow is going to melt, the frost isn't going to leave for a while, and they're just going to get slick and shitty.
So if I were to, like, have advice for groups of hunters, like, go out there.
Hire a guide.
Expect, try to get days, try to get extra days because you're going to be dealing with more difficult conditions. So if you can get an extra day or two, by all means, take that extra day or two of vacation because the more information you can collect on the geese you're hunting, the better chances are that you're going to be able to get a good shoot out of them. And you just are going to need time to research it this year, and you still might not get a good shoot. Plan on not breaking over the 50 mark. Plan on going out to some good restaurants and like have some fun planned.
Yeah, go out there to have a good time.
Exactly.
If you get birds, that's a bonus.
I just hate it when guys show up and the whole fun is based around the snow goose hunt, which is a horrible way to go into a snow goose hunt.
You have a good chance of leaving disappointed.
Yes, and upset.
Yeah.
And think that your money was wasted and blah, blah, blah.
Keep an eye on that snow map, though, with the
always
NOA.
Keep an eye on the snow map.
If you can see, and I know I had buddies, I wasn't hunting with them, but they had, one of the times they had one of their better hunts, there was an established snow line, which you'll probably see this year, but there was actually, like, within that snowpack, there was a 50-mile radius area that for whatever reason didn't have snow.
Mm-hmm.
And the birds were just piled in there, and they didn't have any pressure.
Mm-hmm.
So they had all those birds pretty much to themselves, and they shot the shit out of them.
That's awesome.
And so it's like, that's one tip to kind of when you're looking at those snow maps, keep an eye out for that. Don't just think the line is the only place to be. Anytime you see a place that doesn't have some snow,
there's going to be a lot of geese that shoot up
place,
over the line.
And maybe that line is running at a diagonal, which it does a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's down in Yankton, right on the border, Nebraska, South Dakota border, but further west up along, following the Missouri or whatever, it's in the middle of the state.
And it's good to think
Might
of like
not be bad to go check that area out.
Like the spring snow goose. If you could picture it going up the country as like a comet, pretty much. Like when it gets into the Dakotas, like the head of the comet is going to be right up on the snow line, but it's left
Yes.
quite a long
Yeah,
trail
right.
in its wake, and
Yeah.
there's geese all the way down that
Yeah,
trail.
a lot of times we're out there chasing them in the Dakotas, and I'm still seeing people posting pictures.
Southern Missouri,
yeah.
Kansas
For a
City
while.
area. Yep. And those are guys like finding those little random pods of geese. I mean, they get quite spread out.
Yeah.
Especially when you're talking about a bird that migrates that far. Like
Right,
Those,
yeah.
like, why am I driving 50 miles without seeing a bird? Like,
Yeah.
because they're spread the hell out.
And I kind of like, honestly, I kind of like hunting the leading edge birds because I'm not about, like kind of we talked about, like, would I like a big pile? Sure. But I go out there to hunt with my buddies, hang out with my buddies, to watch that big spring migration. And the few birds that you do get to shoot, they're the best looking ones. They're fully plumed out
Yeah.
adults.
Yep.
I mean, they're great. I mean, if you want one for the wall, that's what you want.
Yeah.
You know?
And if you just stick with it as a snow goose hunter, you're going to get a big pile.
And
Like-
and there's less pressure too.
Yeah.
A lot of people aren't. There's not as many people hunting those leading edge birds.
There's going to be a hell of a lot less people next spring.
Yeah.
Another thing, if you're thinking about getting into snow goose hunting, see how much money you have right now, because there is going to be so many spreads for sale.
Oh yeah.
Like after this spring, like get on Craigslist and start watching the Facebook
Good call.
like decoys for sale. There is going to be so many people selling their spreads. Like if you're looking for a good year to get into it or to buy equipment, this is going to be a fucking buyer's market, that's for sure. There's going to be
Yeah.
so many people selling spreads saying fuck this forever.
Saturated for sure. Yeah.
I've already seen a couple spreads for sale from the Arkansas Guide Services
Really?
that are just wrapping up, mostly just like selling off their old stock to buy new. But
Sure. Yeah. Well, and you'll have that every year. Like the big guides, they get their decoys and then they sell them off and kind of that whole thing. That's pretty much an industry standard, no matter if it's bass hunting or whatever it is.
But a guy I think messaged me the other day and he said, hey, we got a trip booked for like March 20th in South Dakota with a guide. Do you think there'll be a lot of geese around? I said, yeah, probably, but the hunting's not going to be good. Just make sure you know that.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
Why? I said, just the poor hatch, man. It's the poor hatch. Everybody's struggling out there. Make sure you're finding other methods of having fun and making sure you're not gonna let
Hookers and blow.
hookers and blow. Get a lot of hookers, a lot of blow. And
I don't think there's a strong market
in Yankton or in the
Aberdeen,
Dakotas,
but,
the Aberdeen, yeah.
Quality's not going to be what you're used to either. I doubt.
Oh
I
God,
don't know, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I
mean,
look
always
forward to
do.
it every year.
This
But
is why I wanted to, I had a couple. I was trying to schedule some podcasts for this weekend, and I had two potential really good ones, which it's still going to happen. It just hasn't happened yet. But so I'm like, I texted you. I'm like, hey, what's your schedule like this week? I need an episode for this week, and you were down, so that's awesome. And I know my buddies are all. The group text has been lit up. Where everybody's talking about it. My one buddy's painting up old Magnum mallard decoys.
Oh,
and
awesome.
Snow floaters.
Yeah.
He's
it's a good strategy.
well, I think it's more to keep him busy. I don't know that's going to help us kill any more birds, but it's helping the fever.
I know.
He's
yeah.
scratching the itch right now.
Oh,
and
that's
it's definitely not going to hurt.
That's a great way to build a floater spread. Just go around and buy every old duck floater
Some people
you can.
give them away. You can get boxes of free ones.
Yeah,
You just
paint
keep
them
watching
suckers
that
white.
Craigslist.
The thing about doing that, though, is if you use floaters, you're hunting over water.
Yep.
Which I would prefer not to.
Really? Why?
Because it's wet.
Well, yeah. But just think if you had a nice sheet water spread now. No.
Diminishing returns.
Yeah, or a pasture pond.
Right. I've been
Pasture
there.
ponds are awesome.
You know what's better than pasture ponds? Pastures without a pond.
Really?
Yeah, 'cause
No
there's
water.
there's no water there.
But geese like water, thoter
They sure do. They sure. But diminishing
One more thing.
returns.
Yeah, I guess there's some work involved. But
There's
it's
some guys
also-
that
I get a lot of joy of just like honestly looking at the spread.
I do too.
And when you have that field decoys and water decoys,
I have
it
actually
looks
hunted the 10,000 full body spread
I
too.
think we need to make some juicy feed T-shirts.
Yeah. I've been in that spread, that 10,000 full body spread, and it's just impressive.
I bet.
Like when you roll up on it, you're like, Jesus.
They set that
Christ.
with like semi trucks. Like they have like the trailer beds full of.
Yeah, actually, I think
Decoys.
they use like 24-foot trailers, and and they buy a new trailer for every. They don't have a.
Unbelievable.
They don't use the same trailer over and over. They've got like 20 trailers just full of decoys.
That's just insane.
And
it's insane.
It's fun to hunt. It's really fun to hunt there, and they get numbers like every other permanent spread does, like anywhere from 3 to 30 on an average day. And
yeah, but they're gonna have days where they
shoot like 300 sometimes.
They don't get anything. I mean, it's still birds are still birds. It's
back before they started guiding
out
of that spread. I think it was Hamburger Hill. I was talking to a guy who was there in like 2011 or 12 when they had like a 400 or 500 bird day out of a permanent spread, and he said that they were having spins that got so tall that they were shooting into the bottom of the spin, and the top of the spin was so far away they couldn't hear the shots.
I've heard that before, and not even just those big spreads. That just happens. That load up, cover up, like it's.
They don't even know what happened at the bottom.
Well, there's so much that again. Like I had that flock of 300 that drowned out my of cacklers that drowned out our e-collar. Like when you have that many birds, it is so loud. It literally. You can't hear gunshots.
Yeah.
When you got a tower of tornadoing birds coming down, unfortunately this has not happened to me, but I know people aren't bullshitting me when they've told me the stories. They're like, it was 40 minutes of chaos. Like it was just, we'd shoot, obviously that lower layer would peel out, and that top layer, they're still tornadoing down, and while they're doing that, every other flock is still joining in that tornado. And it's like, it was just load up, cover up. It was load your gun as fast as you can, close your blind doors, and you only had to wait like 3, 4, 5 minutes before somebody calls a shot again, pop up, boom, 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 load up, cover up. Yeah. It's like, I can't even imagine the chaos.
And those permanent spreads too, a lot of times you're hunting geese that are all migrating. And just like migrating Canada geese, they decoy well. So like you're talking about snow geese that like to hang up at like 80, 90 yards. When you get a really good migrator day on snows, you're taking 10-yard shots.
Yeah.
And a lot of those permanent spreads also have pits that are very well concealed. So you're kind of you're not running into those concealment issues.
Yep.
So you got migrators that are vulnerable. You got full bodies that are realistic and able to actually pull them in. And I mean,
go back to the backboards though. I'm still a fan of the backboards.
I love backboard
even this
hunting.
Fall,
I do it for Canada a lot too.
We did it this fall, and I mean, if you stay still, I mean, we shot at some pretty close birds.
It's a great method for snow goose hunting.
I mean, yeah, I could definitely see if a lot of people adopted it that it might not work at some point in time, and then you kind of go back. It's the kind of got the revolving patterns. Of what birds kind of get used to, and thinking outside the box and always doing something different is kind of a big thing. But I don't know, so far so good with the backboards. Like it works even with, like I said, even works with honkers. I mean, when you do it for honkers, are you in black or what do you?
I typically do ghillie blankets for honkers, and then even a ghillie jacket on top. I'll ghillie up for it.
Just set 4 dozen snow decoys and hiding them.
We've been thinking about doing setting 100 snow goose decoys and white hoodieing it up for Canadas around this area, even though there's not snow geese.
I'm in to try it. I think it would work. Why I don't know why it wouldn't work. The geese are gonna be like, "Hey, there's no snow geese here." They're not. That's not how their brains work.
Agreed. I think it would work too, because as long as they don't
field with swans, so.
I think people get a little bit confused with what geese will think is weird and what geese will think is scary.
I was thinking after our last conversation, and then I saw some really good-looking full-body crane decoys.
Oh, those deceptions.
As far as blind concealment goes, if you had a half dozen of those right in between your blinds,
you could probably do that.
Dude, you could cut up your silhouette pretty effectively with those.
You know how much those deceptions?
Yeah,
they cost $100 a pop, I think.
It's just money. Can't take it with you when you go.
Yeah. You know what I just bought for Canada hunting was I just grabbed 6 dozen wind socks. Bought some deadlies. Like a lot of people use socks for.
Is it deadlies I have or does White Rock make?
Yeah, White Rock makes Canada socks.
I have 5 dozen of those, and their White Rock bag, dude, that's easily stackable. Yep. I'm definitely getting another 5.
We might have talked about that on the last podcast, but
we may have. I'm sure I'm going to repeat stories all the time on this podcast. It's just going to happen.
But they mix in great with silhouettes, and people kind of scoff at them for Canada's. It was like, yeah, that's what all we use for snow geese, and they're the smartest.
Look great.
They're the smartest species that we hunt.
Definitely the most pressured. Whether they're smart or not, they definitely get. I mean, the moment they leave their breeding grounds, but till they get back, they're getting shot at pretty much.
Right.
So I mean, you're not going to find a more wary group of birds.
Right.
I mean, just as far as just pressure goes. I mean.
Yeah, I think not only are they good at avoiding your spread when they realize they're getting too close, but they're so good at avoiding hunters to begin with. Like all those old birds, I don't think they ever charge into a spread first. I think they're always following a tornado.
I think and I think it's because I think it's not like we talked about this the last time. It's like I don't think it's an intelligence thing per se. I think it's like a numbers get like the ones that don't, the vulnerable ones get killed.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that are just afraid of their own shadow, they don't get killed.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're the ones that become those old wise birds. They're not wise. They just
know how to
decoy.
They
They're
know
not
how to
vulnerable.
avoid. Yeah, they know how to avoid you. And then they not only do they know how to avoid you in general, but they just know where to go when they start their journey off the roost.
Yeah, I think
they're not
Their
confused.
instincts have just worked for them.
Yeah, they get up.
Their instincts don't put them into. I mean, I'm trying to say
dangerous
like,
situations.
They're not wise. They're not wise. They're not learning. I think their instincts just by chance have kept them alive because they.
I think they maybe learn not to be the first ones into a spread.
Maybe
those juvies do bomb.
I mean, again, it's like, do they learn that, or is it just they were always that way? Mm-hmm. Maybe as a juvie, they were always that way.
I got a buddy
who
goes
just cautious.
I got a buddy who's like really into hunting adult snow geese, and that's all he focuses on because they have a higher band ratio.
Yeah.
And he was telling me when they go to Saskatchewan, they really got to let that first wave of juvies come in and like land and go around for circles, and then the adults start really coming in and mixing in. Like they start to figure it out. Like,
man, that'd be tough.
Let's see if
that'd be really tough. Really tough not taking those shots.
You ever see a juvie that looks like it has a neck collar on its neck too?
If you get some
they
of
get
those
that neck
interphase
collar,
ones.
Yeah, they get that like a grape spot around its neck.
Yeah.
You go, oh shit, bang! You go out and pick out a dirty
like,
juvie.
Oh man.
Whoops.
Juvie blue. They're just gross looking. They're just like they're not black. They're not gray. They're just like. Ugh. But some of the juvie snows, I think, look when they have that gray kind of fading in there. Some of those look pretty cool.
Yeah, they do look pretty cool. I like snow and blue geese. I think they're very pretty.
I like the interphase ones. The white belly blue. I had one. My taxidermist lost it somehow.
Sold it to
what
Cabela's.
With there. Maybe. I don't know. I honestly don't know what happened there, but it was almost, it had just a little bit of black around the neck separating its belly from, what a normal eagle head blue would look like. It was a really badass looking bird, but I'll just have to shoot another one. Maybe I'll get one this year. We'll see.
You ever seen a dead blue-phase Ross?
Yes, I have.
Really?
I have not shot one, but
I've seen
our
one
buddy
dead
Austin just started snow goose hunting. Shot one last year.
I don't know if they're getting more common or if they're
fair.
getting or if we're just seeing them more now that social media is so prevalent. But that's a pretty cool bird to see.
It's a super cool bird to see because they're just not. It's just cool because we know they're rare.
Yeah, I looked up Ross goose too on Google the other day.
Often.
Like I was doing some, I don't know, just research or just reading about Ross geese, and the very first picture that pops up on Google is a blue-phase
What's
rod.
a blue?
I'm like, man,
it's a little.
It's just a gorgeous one, dude. Like the most prime, rarest bird you will ever find in the snow goose world. Sitting there like it's like swimming on a pond. Like here is a Ross goose. I'm like, that is the rarest Ross goose in the world, but it technically is a Ross goose. Google.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I would love it. That'd be great. They're so cool looking. Just 'cause I like them. I like Rossies anyway, just because they're just like little mini snows.
They're tiny.
They're so tiny.
Yeah, one day 2 springs ago, I was driving past a pond and I slammed the brakes like, was that a fucking albino duck? Because it was just mixed in with a bunch of mallards. I turned around, just the tiniest, cutest little Ross goose sitting there. Probably a cripple.
The cacklers are tiny too.
Yeah.
We had a fall hunt in North Dakota. I got the picture of it somewhere, and we got the geese laid out, and the cackler is at least equal size of a Drake mallard that we shot, but I think it actually might be a little touch smaller.
They weigh a little less. They weigh a little less.
I was like, wow.
And then they just look so much smaller because a mallard bill is going to be 2.5 inches, and then a little cackler bill is
their bill is tiny, especially compare it to like a full size.
Yeah, so their head and their bill looks like or a mallard, a full size mallard just has a way bigger head and bill.
They're so tiny, that little helium filled honk they have. Why they're called cacklers.
Little pit squeaks.
That's fun. I don't know. Well, I don't know. Should we tease them with? We've talking about maybe either having you on more on the podcast. We've talked about maybe doing your own podcast for your fans to just that's just going to be a waterfall. So
I've got some good ideas for episodes coming up.
We're gonna work out the details of that. If I might just cut you loose on it. I can kind of pseudo produce it. But yeah, we'll see that for like I said, for your fans, kind of keep an eye out for that. Something to get
But yeah,
excited
subscribe to the Full Scale Outdoors podcast
Yep.
if you want to keep up on some more like interesting waterfall podcasts that I'll be on or hosting in the future with other guests. I mean, we got a lot of irons, kind of like ideas in
Yeah.
the fire, but
Yep.
it's something that we got a good response from last time, and a lot of people enjoyed it.
Yeah, you were by far, so far, of my episodes. I mean, this will be 9, so it's not like there's a shit ton of them. Not to take anything away from you, but yours spiked a lot. So that's a credit to, obviously your network that you have following you on Instagram and social and Snapchat already. So hopefully the podcast sees another spike. That'd be great. And,
Yeah.
And we'll
And
keep
we can
doing
never.
more.
I could talk about waterfall.
Oh, I could too. I would sit here all day, damn day. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. That is like my obsession. I mean, we talked about this in the first one. Like, you're a specialist. Like, this is like all you do. You don't deer hunt. You don't do anything else. I do all those other things, but it's only waterfalling that really geeks me out. Like, that's like
There's so many.
the most excited about
There's
it.
so many nerd channels when it comes to waterfall hunting. There's photography, dogs, decoys, calling.
It's the variety of, like, they all look different. There's multiple species that, you can shoot different ducks in a day. I like a day where I have, the limit is 6 and they're all 6 are different.
Right.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm not a all greenheads guy, like green or nothing. I'm like,
I like variety.
I love the variety, man. That's one of the things, that image, like we're watching the birds land in your yard here, just that image of them cupped out, committed, like, just fires me up. The talking, calling them and the interaction. I mean, there's just a lot of things, the outdoor world, that just don't share. They don't share that. I think that's why people get really pumped up about turkey hunting. There's a lot of really obsessive turkey hunters, and I think it's kind of that same thing, that interaction. But the thing you don't have with turkeys that you have with waterfowl is the variety. I mean, for the most part, a turkey is a turkey is a turkey, unless you're traveling the country and chasing subspecies.
Right.
But then it's even just minute. Oh, that one has white tips
I think
on the tail.
Yeah. What's that one in Mexico called though? That one looks fucking
we
crazy.
just talked about this in the last.
It's not Osceola.
Oscillated.
I can't.
Crap. Well, literally, we just talked about this last week.
I just Googled it too, like a month ago. But yeah, that fucking Mexican turkey looks.
Osceola or crap.
You know what we should do too? An entire episode about Mexican duck hunting, because we need to quit hunting the United States.
Can we shoot them over the wall? Does that work out? I mean, they won't see you.
That could be an entire episode. But I've got a lot of like ideas kicking around in my head about episodes, all the way from calling to equipment to all sorts of nerd channels.
Yeah, so we might just have to do like I don't know, it's kind of up to your schedule, like a once a month or every other week, just like a waterfowl corner, or I don't know. We'll come up with something. We'll put our heads together. We'll come up with something. So just stay tuned to Full Scale Outdoors on all the social media outlets.
Yeah, and subscribe and comment with what you want to hear.
We should do this, and then if we decide to do this, and maybe we can do this for the next one, we'll pump it up for a few weeks, and I think we should have a time that we do it, because I do still like the idea you had last time of going Facebook Live and actually doing a Q&A, like have people can ask you a question, and then we can respond in real time.
And I'd like to kind of
how we'll do that. I'll have to kind of.
I definitely want to do a like a calling instructional. So I've been really successful doing like private tutoring, where I charge like $60 an hour, and guys come in here and we'll do one-on-one lessons with how to properly operate calls. And I think that's something that maybe it would be good, at least the fundamentals of it.
I'm guaranteeing people will tune into that one for sure.
Yeah, so that's something everybody's interested in. Everybody wants to learn how to become a better caller.
Yeah, for sure.
And everybody is doing instructionals wrong. And it makes it so much harder. And there's just a couple things I've picked up on just from teaching so many guys in my kitchen on how to make it easier for people. I think that'd be a great episode 1 and a great episode with a live Q&A.
I don't think it's that different from a music instrument instructor. It's way easier to teach somebody that knows nothing than to fix bad habits.
Sure.
Establish bad habits. And that can go, I don't care if you're martial arts, sensei or whatever that's called, or you're a baseball coach or whatever it is that you're an expert at. When you're training somebody else, a clean slate is way better than trying to break somebody of well-established bad habits.
Yeah.
And I guarantee the first time you hear me blow a call, you're going to cringe more than likely. I'm not the worst caller in the world, but I guarantee because you are a specialist, you're going to be like, oh, God.
And being a good caller doesn't make you a good teacher either.
Right.
So,
Well, yeah, it's the same thing.
a lot of these guys on YouTube are great callers.
You could be an award-winning author. It doesn't mean you could teach a lit class.
Exactly.
Be an asshole and not have the patience.
Right.
And not understand how other people's brains work and, breaking that all down. So,
anyways,
wow.
we got ideas.
Trying to wrap this up, but we just keep talking. That's just how it is. Anyways, what we're saying is stay tuned. And, give us comments what you liked about this podcast, what you don't like about this podcast, and what you'd like to see us have on this podcast or talk about on this podcast. Anyways, so all comments, likes, shares, all that stuff is all good. All right, Nick, this was awesome. I like your aquarium. Ooh, there's some out there right now. Just
gorging themselves.
A pair of pears.
Yeah, see, and this is a little bit of the pairing up I'm seeing. What is it? It's March 4th today? Yeah, March 4th. We're just starting to see it like at the end of last week.
We're just starting getting into the rape culture of ducks.
Yeah, my brother actually.
It's brutal.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's a whole nother subject for another time, Nick. All right, let's wrap this bitch up.
All right, thanks a lot for coming over,
guys.
man.